I am live and live. Hello, chat room. How are y'all doing? I'm trying a new microphone position. Um, which will hopefully, cut the reverb a little bit. To be honest though, on the English streams, it was, or just on streams in general, it was never really that much of a problem. I don't know, does this sound weird? Does this sound odd? It feels odd. Maybe I should just only do this for podcasts. Maybe for streams it's just unnecessary. I don't know. Yeah. Chat is a little quiet today. That's okay. That's all right. We'll make it through this. Okay, you know what? I'm not fucking with the mic position. I'm not. I just can't do it. It feels weird. Or does it? I don't know. Maybe it's not that big a deal. It's still very much kind of hot outside. If the summer stays like this, it'll be bearable. If it stays like this, it'll be bearable. But there's already some murmurs of a second heat wave, so say hello if you're in chat, feel free. How have you been doing, y'all? What's the rub? What's the skinny? CELIA, what's up? Ozzy, what's going on? Yeah, I saw the Metroid thing. That's pretty cool. I do like Dread. I think Dread is a pretty decent game. Okay, guys, I'll have the microphone like this. For like, well, yeah. I'll listen to the VOD later. I'll see how this sounded later. But for now, I'll go back to the old method because like this is freaking me out. I don't like it. Okay. Yeah, guys, I'm gonna have Celia on in like 10-20 minutes-ish. I'm sorry, I'm a little late. Was gonna have her on at 9:30. On the dot. However, I started a little late, and I still do want to cover the Sony news. Drill Dancer, what's going on? So, Drill Dancer, you're saying it was clear when it was pointed, like, when the mic was, like, center. That made it clear? The main thing it would have done... Oh, now it's clear. Okay. Huh. Interesting. Okay, weird. See, yeah, I don't know. It looks better. It feels better. Okay. The main reason to do it the way I just had it is it will cut the reverb a little bit. It'll improve the reverb situation. Okay. Ashes, what's up? Yeah, I think Dread was just a weird fucking... It was the weird in-between thing. I still liked it, despite that, but yeah. I will say, I don't know if it's an S tier 2D action game. I think it's like a solid B tier. B to A tier. Wolfson, what's up, man? Okay. I'm not gonna waste any more time. I will get straight into it. Yeah. We have the two Sony... The pieces of Sony news that came out, and we have CELIA lined up. We're gonna talk about mechanical depth later. B potion. Wait, where do I link it? You're correct that it does need that. But where, which link are you talking about? Dread had surprisingly dynamic enemies. I will say that. But I recently replayed like most of the game on hard mode. I was like, oh, this is cool. Yeah. But like it didn't really blow my dick off. Let's see. Oh, you're right on my oh my god, on my YouTube. Yeah, you're so right. Oh no, no fucking, I'm such an idiot, dude. Oh my god, I've had it wrong for so long. I've had it wrong for... Thank you for notifying me. Oh my god, that's such a fucking major blunder, bro. Oh my goodness, that's such a... Okay, I need to fix that shit right now. Oh my god, it's like wrong in every fucking... Okay, actually, I don't... Okay, I didn't put it in my live stream description. Wait, let's see. Customization... Okay. Y'all, I fixed it. Let's get into it. Let's get into the Sony news. Hello, YouTube. Say hello, YouTube, in chat if you want to be in the video. Okay, guys. The games industry is industrying. It's happening. It's industrying. It's industry time. Let's rip the fucking band-aid off. I mean... What the hell do you even say this? So Sony... Hot off the heels, suspicious timing. Hot off the heels of the GTA 6 announcement. The announcement that GTA 6 will, in fact, not ship on a physical disc. Instead... You may buy it from either of the two digital storefronts, or you may buy a physical box that contains a code. And Sony is now announcing, yeah, this will be the plan going forward for every single game starting in 2028, January 2028. And... I've seen already a couple people sort of misconstrue it, but the wording I think is pretty clear. They're saying here, new games will be available on PlayStation Store and at retailers in digital formats only, right? At retailers means Amazon, you know, if you're American, Best Buy, Walmart, whatever. The only way that can work is if they sell you codes, right? That's how it has to work, huh? Yeah. Now, I said it's suspicious timing. There's gotta be some synergy there, yeah, between this announcement and the GTA 6 thing. There's gotta be some fucking synergy. I mean, obviously, this must have been planned for a while. The GTA 6 thing must have been planned for a while. And... I'm wondering if GTA 6 being like the prototype for this model, right? Like launching this model of release to the masses is how they're kind of justifying it, you know? Because, oh, the logic is if GTA did it and everyone was fine with it, then we can justify with our games as well going forward. Ozzy, do you think Sony told Rockstar to do this? No, not necessarily. I don't know how exactly it worked, right? I don't know if it was that straightforward. I do think there was some kind of conversation there. There was some kind of synergy there. And like, again, maybe it was the other way around, right? Maybe it was like Rockstar saying, hey, this is how we're going to do it. And then Sony thinking, hang on a second. It's just, the timing is just too suspicious, I think. The fact that the GTA announced its model, and then a couple of days later we're learning, yeah, this is the model for like every game going forward. Now, obviously, this is horrible for many, many reasons, and it's also easily explainable why this is happening, right? Obviously, all these big companies, they want us to move toward digital in general, faster and faster and faster, right? That's the end goal. Because on the digital storefronts, you don't have to, split the revenue with the retailers. It's all going to the publisher of the game and whoever the first party is, right? Be it Sony, Xbox, Valve, Nintendo, whatever. Now, the thing standing in the way there has always been retailer relationships, right? So you obviously need retailers to sell your consoles, but then you're gonna fuck up the relationship by saying, actually, we're not letting you sell our games. We're gonna sell our games, right? If the retailer can make money off of the games, if they're only making money off of the consoles, that's just not worth it for them, right? And you already saw those kinds of power plays with the Xbox back in the day, where when Microsoft announced, by the way, I should say, this is an anti-Microsoft stream. I'm pro-BDS, I'm pro-Palestine. Microsoft is involved with the Israeli military. I'm simply mentioning them here for, like, journalistic context, I guess, right? But I encourage you to boycott Microsoft and to not purchase their games. And I will post the appropriate links in the description. So back when Microsoft launched Game Pass and announced, hey, all of our games will be coming to the subscription service, guess what? A couple of retailers reacted by saying, hey, we're not going to stock Xboxes anymore, because that just does not make sense for us, right? Why would we carry your product if we're not going to make money off of the product long term? So that's why you always have to maintain some kind of relationship with the retailer, right? Now, doing it this way, you're saying, okay, we're just getting rid of the discs. We're still selling the games at retail. What exactly are you doing, right? Number one, you're cutting the cost of the physical disc, which is practically nothing. However, at scale, nothing kind of is something, right? So it's worth it, right? And if they can get away with it, then it's worth it. So that's the first reason. And then the second reason is control, right? You control when people can access the games. The same thing is going to happen with GTA, right? Where they're going to have a worldwide, like, simultaneous launch. Even if you get the code in the box early, it doesn't fucking matter. You have to wait your turn to download the freaking game. It also is control in the sense that you can't sell the game, right? And then also, the purchase is ultimately tied to your account, right? And there will be some sort of subconscious pressure on the users to be like, well, okay, this is tied to my account is valuable. And it's funny because, like, you may ask, why is GTA even launching in stores, right? Why is it doing the download code thing when they could just sell it on PlayStation Store and Xbox and that's it? And obviously, for such a massive game, the retail market is still important. The retail visibility is still important, right? Even if ultimately it ends up in a way where you have to download the game, I think for the average Joe Schmo person, seeing the game in the store is a huge fucking form of marketing that you cannot go without, right? However, that being the case, you do condition people slowly this way to like, oh, even though I bought it in the store, I still have to, or at the retailer, I should say, I still have to redeem this code and I have to use the PlayStation Store and I have to download the game from there. So, maybe next time I may as well just buy it directly from PlayStation Store instead of putting a useless fucking box on my shelf. And then slowly but surely you do create that effect, right? Yeah, I know, right? So, it's pretty fucking horrible. It's pure fucking greed. It's pure greed, and you will never own anything ever again. It's very bad. And it's very funny, too, to announce this the same day that Sony is also saying, hey, we are actually shutting down the PlayStation 3 and Vita store for good. So this will... Right now, as it stands, you can actually still purchase games off of the PlayStation 3 online store. And this will no longer be possible starting August. And the really funny part here is where they say, to ease the transition, players will still be able to download previously purchased content after the closing date for the foreseeable future, right? Pay attention to the exact wording. They're saying to ease the transition for the foreseeable future is pretty clearly indicating that this is a temporary thing, right? It's not a permanent measure. It's specifically for the purpose of, like, easing the transition, right? And I think you're very strongly juxtaposing the two realities, right? They want to control all your purchases. They want to control everything you do. However, they can't even guarantee that you'll have access to it perpetually, right? And I think it's sort of crazy that, you know, you look at services like Steam, and we've spent the last 15 years downplaying the loss of ownership, right? The last 15 years, people have been telling you, oh my god, physical doesn't matter, it's just a fucking, you know, it's just data anyway, who cares, it's more convenient, Steam sales are so good, it's so cheap, look how cheap it is. You hear weird arguments like, oh, you're only buying a license anyway, even when it's a disc, blah, blah, blah. The reality is a disc has practical use cases, right? It still has practical usefulness. I still own it, nobody can take it away from me, I can sell it, I can share it. I think all that is great, especially with older games. The value of that can't be understated, because a lot of older games are just still designed to run off of disk, right? I have this issue with the GTA trilogy on the original Xbox, where if you... My Xbox is modded, I have a hard drive installed and all that stuff. However, if you do that with the GTA games, they're not going to work very well. They froze on me a bunch of times, and I ended up having to get the physical discs, because that was really the only way to reliably play them. And that's why, personally, specifically with shit like the Marvel collection recently, I went out of my way to buy the physical disc, because I want that comfort of, like, okay, nobody can take this away from me, right? Even if there's, like, a licensing nightmare later down the line, this is mine, I own it. And then you get all these weird arguments like, what about disc rot? What about batteries dying? It's like, if you don't know, disc rot is this idea of like, okay, your discs literally rot and they stop working, right? This is incredibly rare. This doesn't really happen with, well, maybe not enough time has passed with modern discs, right? I just feel like people always bring this up as like this gotcha, like, so you shouldn't even care about physical games in the first place because, like, oh, look at this, right? And it's like, okay, even if we assume that this will happen, right? It still doesn't mean we should give up our rights. You know, it still does not mean we should be okay with these companies like monopolizing and forcing us through a single channel like they are here. Now, the final point on this, the final wrinkle here, if this does kill retail eventually, right? Possibly, maybe. Because eventually people have to understand that, like, well, there's no point buying the shit at retail, right? You may just buy it off the store. Won't Sony and Microsoft and all those companies have the same problem in the end, right? Where they're scaring off retail and they're fucking over those relationships? Well, here's the thing. With the current RAM-pocalypse, I feel like for the next couple of years, video game consoles will be a niche product anyway. That's sort of my prediction. And I think maybe they will be so niche that a company like Sony is very comfortable with the idea that they will handle most of the distribution, right? Maybe they will change the entire model, not to be a mass market product sold at a loss, but instead, you know, instead a niche product sold at a
I'm gonna buy the entire earth
at a surplus
and be
not
king.
a surplus at a profit. Oh my god, my brain is not working. Game Long, thank you for the sub. Welcome to the board. Discs inevitably rot. Every form of storage media eventually rots. That's why long-lived corporations back up to magnetic tape and transfer. See, I mean, that's fair. Maybe I was speaking a little too casually and loosely. However, I want to say Blu-ray discs rotting within my lifetime, I'm kind of doubting it. I'm very skeptical of that. Like, I haven't really seen it to that like super significant degree, yeah. My freaking streaming bullshit. I don't know if it's giving me all the comments. Okay, let me go through the chat for a second.
Buy the entire earth and be king.
Why is this happening? I will say with Nintendo, so obviously the game keycard bullshit, if you remember all that, is these little cards that contain, they're basically linked to Nintendo server somehow, and they let you download the game, right? And if the card is inserted into your Switch, you can play the downloaded game. That's kind of how it works. The reason I'm phrasing it that specific way is the way they handle it is actually very interesting because the game keycard games are not tied to the eShop. So if you happen to get a game keycard early, you can still download the game, even if it's not unlocked on the eShop yet. So even though it's sort of shitty, they kind of did it in the most like consumer friendly way possible. I don't want to like glaze Nintendo too hard, but I think you can kind of tell that this sort of shit is like the physical market is very important to them, right? So I think there's some hope in that, okay, Nintendo will be kind of holding it down in that regard, but for how long, who knows? I will say I see the appeal of PC in that just okay, you can sidestep the system and just pirate shit, yeah. That is good. I am very critical of how Valve is sort of received by the general gaming community, of how positively they're received. And yeah, Blur, I can kind of see that. I can kind of see the... Though, to be honest, I just feel like logistically that's too weird. I don't know. I mean, the PS5 Pro didn't take either, really, so... I don't know. The thing that really pisses me off with the game key cards is, like, why did they not just make slow cards? Like, the whole issue was like, okay, making cards where you can read the game from in real time is too expensive, right? They're too expensive. And that's why they're also marked up in price compared to the digital downloads. Okay, I get it. But, like, why don't you just make slow cards that are cheap to produce, but they contain the entire game, and then you install the game to the internal storage? Like, it's the same, they use the same model on the PS5 and the Xbox. So, I don't know. It's very weird. See, this is why, Mintex, this is why I hate when people say, oh yeah, GOG is preservation, remasters of preservation, blah. The only real preservation would be, I mean, number one, just big pirated libraries like, I will not say names. That are very accessible for everybody, right? That's actual preservation. Like consumer commercial access, that's not preservation. And IMO GOG is preservation because, okay, it makes it easier for others. I guess I see what you're saying. That is sort of a roundabout way to think about it, though. Because GOG is DRM free, right? But then also, if you have like a legislative element, right, where obviously the Video Game History Foundation, they tried to do this. They tried to like advocate for a sort of public library where you can just like through a sort of online like streaming or renting system. I don't know how exactly it's going to work, but they wanted to handle it that way, right? And like obviously, I think for the average gamer that would be too cumbersome. That would probably not something they take advantage of, but it's at least it is like sort of handled in a legal way. I feel like that's something we need. Unless you inherently distrust lawmakers, yeah. I was thinking about this the other day, Adrius. Oh, sorry, wait, I pinned the wrong message. I was thinking about this the other day. If you take an example like Intergalactic, I don't know if Naughty Dog's next game after Intergalactic will have that kind of scale again. I don't see it. I think that will be a good litmus test, you know? I think after that game drops, something has to change. Like, something very significantly has to change. I think over the next couple of years, the industry will be... Like, AAA will be massively consolidated. There will basically be no new IP. Japan will dominate for a little bit, right? I think the Western AAA is, like, cooked. Is, like, absolutely fucking cooked. I guess it will be fertile ground for indies, hopefully. It starts to be critical of Valve, given the choices they've made as a private corporation, and how those choices are specifically looking. See, the thing is they do a lot of good and pro-consumer shit. The 30% cut is very aggressive, is very draconian, you know? And for those who don't know, Valve take a 30% cut of every sale on Steam. And it's also, yeah, it's also that they just don't give a shit a lot of time about a lot of things. They have a very like laissez-faire kind of attitude about all that stuff. Where I mean, this is a little. I'm gonna give a slight content warning here. This is very severely racist, but this game is being sold on Steam. I think we can be a little critical of Valve. I mean, that's the thing. It is literally convenient, but then people, I think the average person just doesn't look at it from an ideological perspective. Yeah. They're blind sort of to the ideological long-term game, and they're thinking short-term, like, well, I'm not stuffing my house with useless boxes. I don't have to get up from the couch. And I can, it doesn't break. It's tied to my account. Like, it is more convenient. See, I like Me the Holler a lot. I will say it is. When they talked about it sort of pre-release, I was like shaking my head a lot. Where okay, they almost killed the studio because they had to make it like this big ass multi-weapon RPG, yeah. And I'm like, bro, it's like that is classic like human hubris, yeah. I feel like that type of hubris, it also exists in indie studios, yeah. That's kind of the depressing thing. Oh yeah, CELIA, I see what you're saying, that like maybe again with like human checks, with like manual checks, that it might fly under the radar. Okay, I think I'm done with this topic. It's very, very depressing. Alright, y'all. I'm gonna give CELIA a ring, and then we're gonna talk a little bit about her work, about the idea of mechanical depth in games. I'll call her, I'll make sure that everything is working, and then I'll pipe her through. What's up? I'm doing pretty good. I will press the button on my little interface, and then the chat will be able to hear you. Is that okay? Nice. Okay, chat, say hello to CELIA. They should be able to hear you.
Hi there. Actually, just close the stream. Let me bring that back up so I can see chat.
Okay, let me.
All right, there we go.
Hell yeah.
Howdy.
I'm gonna play the clap sound. So yeah, guys, this is CELIA WAGAR. I've been reading your blog for honestly years at this point. You're yeah, you're a game design instructor and programmer.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Do
My
you want
day
to
job is
introduce yourself a little
enterprise
bit?
software.
Yeah.
My day job is enterprise software engineering, and I teach for GameDesignSkills.com, where a lot of people go to get the game design education they didn't get in college.
Mm-hmm. So I remember reading on GameDesignSkills.com like a while back. I think I read one of your articles, like one of the free articles there that was based on your prior work, was sort of an updated version.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
what's the current status of game design skills? Like, is it up and running? Are you actively teaching?
We just started a new class yesterday.
Oh, fire.
So I just started teaching a new class yesterday. That's the deal. The class I'm currently teaching is called. Oh God, we have an awful title for this one. We really screwed up on the marketing. I shouldn't say that. But the title is Directing Game Mechanics Satisfaction.
Okay.
So we've been trying to figure out like the right title for this course for a long time, and I at one point I was like, wait a second, all the things in this course, they're kind of like what a director would need to know, right?
Mm,
Because like there's so much more to being a designer than just building mechanics. Because we already have a course called Mastering Game Mechanics, and that course
mm,
obviously is just game mechanics. It's nothing but game mechanics, and this course is kind of everything else a designer needs to know that aren't just the mechanics. And so kind of what's the through line of all that different stuff? Because like we previously emphasized like game feel, but the thing is it's very much not just a game feel course. There's game feel in it, but it's very much not just a game feel course. And so how do you find the through line? Like, oh wait, this is kind of like what a designer needs to know in order to level up to becoming a director in the future.
mm.
So that's the through line we found. The title, not amazing. I think that maybe a better one in hindsight would have been designer to director, but whatever. It is what it is. We're probably going to spin this off into two separate courses, one more focused on game feel and one more focused on all the other stuff in the future.
Gotcha. I think last time I
Yeah.
checked, and again, you have a couple public articles on the website. I'm showing it on stream
Oh,
right
yeah.
now. And yeah, last time I checked in, you had, I think, those first two up, Game Design Pillars and What is Game Dev? Like, those are the ones I remember
Yeah.
reading.
Yeah. One more came up.
Nice.
Yes, there's
And,
there's one more on skill tests, which is technically a level design article.
okay.
I actually teach that in the course I'm teaching right now. Uh, so I decided to so I call it my dynamism framework. We like to group these things into frameworks or whatever. So we want to make skill tests dynamic, and there's like four factors to that, which is asynchrony, input sensitivity, multi-threading, and input RNG.
Mm,
And the idea is that between these four things, you're going to be serving the player with unique challenges every time that they go through your game, and that'll help keep your game more fresh for people. But it'll also mean that they have to like legitimately develop the various skills that you're testing, rather than simply memorizing a solution and then executing it until eventually you luck your way through or something like that.
mm,
It makes games less repetitive and a bit more choice oriented rather than execution oriented.
mm.
Yeah,
I take it this is a mostly online university?
entirely online.
Gotcha.
So we're not accredited. We're not affiliated with any particular university. We're basically just an online course. We uh,
Gotcha.
we take on classes from anywhere from like 100 to 30 students
Damn,
typically.
okay.
Yes. And we get like a very diverse audience from around the world. We get people from Brazil. We get people from Australia. We get people from all over Europe. We get people from the Middle East. It's really interesting to hear from people in the Middle East because most of them are stuck in mobile game development and they want to get the
Mm,
fuck out.
yeah,
Yeah.
I totally get that. I I'm not super I don't have like a super close sort of wire to that person, but like one of my friends at school, she talks pretty regularly to the guy behind um He's a West Bank developer. God, what was the name of the game? Um, it was a game about one of the Israel attacks in Gaza, I think, sort of in the 2010s.
Damn.
Yeah. God, I wish I could.
Occasionally, I get like a student from Israel, and I just have to bite my fucking tongue.
Yeah. Rashid is his name, and he's currently working on this game, Dreams on a Pillow, and
Mm.
what was Lilia and the Shadows of War. That was the one we played in class. Actually, it was pretty harrowing. We do have three students. We have three students from Israel in my semester as well, and I never like really interacted with them that much. So I didn't really get a sense for how deep the brainwashing kind of went, but
I've
yeah.
gotten a sense. So I have actually interacted with a number of game devs from Israel.
Hmm.
Not all of them through my course, but certainly a variety of different contexts.
Hmm.
And one of them that I spoke to, I was like, "Hey, if I were in your position, I would be doing everything in my power to end the occupation."
Yeah.
And he told me that he was, and
Oh
he's like
wow.
doing what he can, basically. I don't know the specifics of it, and yeah, but he said he was making an effort. Another one didn't really talk about it at all, and I
Hmm.
encouraged him to get out. I didn't tell him why, but I encouraged him to get out, and it seemed like he was open to the idea.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
I'll say so my sort of academic background, I studied at Cologne Game Lab. My first year was 2019. Did my both my bachelor's and my master's degree there, and
Both from game
um,
design?
yeah. They sort of have
Okay.
three. So officially, the title is like, uh, bachelor slash master of arts digital games, and then they have three tracks: design, programming, arts. Pretty classic. Um,
Oh, yeah.
the crazy thing is that like every year they take like, I think 40 people max total. Um, and it is sort of the curriculum is kind of halfway split between theory and practice. So toward the back half of every semester, you would do these group projects, sort of based on a theme. Um, so you would get like they would kind of push you into the idea of game dev like pretty head first, and that is cool. There was kind of an inherent problem in the sense of like, okay, when you're building a team, they um like when when they accept people into the program, they try to make sure that we have a sort of even split between all the disciplines, so that the teams can like form kind of organically from there. uh but especially with like programming people, it was always an issue. Like there was never enough to go around, and just their classes in general were like very mismanaged, and there was like nobody to do it, and it was very, very bad.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
My experience with programming games started in high school, actually.
Mm.
So I was one of those kids that got really into Macromedia Flash back in the day before it
Mm.
got rebranded as Adobe Flash and then eventually rebranded as Adobe Animate and then eventually discontinued and then undiscontinued. So I've been using Flash since I was maybe 12. And so I started programming in that. And one of the things I did in high school was I started trying to program games in it. And that
Mm.
was fairly difficult. I mean, it was. So I say fairly difficult. I mean, it was difficult for me as a high schooler. It was fairly easy compared to a lot of compared to working in like Unity or Unreal nowadays. Big engines like that always always mess with me, especially
Mm.
Unreal Engine. Unreal Engine just has like so much boilerplate going on in order to get anything done.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, so in high school, I like took my lessons from trigonometry and physics class, and then I turned those into basic games, and I had a lot of fun doing that.
Nice.
Yeah.
I can say, like, speaking for myself, I'm still missing a lot of the I think I understand like a lot of the conceptual like fundamentals of programming, but it's not something I ever like really built huge comfort with. I kind of
Oh
just
yeah.
like fumble my way through, and like for the like scale of my projects, it's been like enough. Um,
Fair
but
enough.
God, I wish I had more time to like just really dedicate to it. Yeah.
It's pretty cool. I would say that like apart from developing games in high school, I kind of bounced off of programming for many years.
Mm,
Obviously, you know that I went for a bachelor's of fine arts in animation, so I learned how to animate because I mean, hey, that was the natural thing from Flash animation, right?
yeah.
So I learned how to animate in college. I mean, I learned how to animate before that, but like I really learned how to animate in college. And I just kind of bounced off of programming for the longest time. Like I could do some stuff. Like I was pretty good at problem solving in code, but I wasn't the best at like more formal programming. I couldn't use that to get things done in like a practical way, in the way that like would be necessary for a job.
Mm,
So after college, I kind of faffed around for a couple of years, and then I ended up going back to college for more programming stuff. I ended up in like a what's it called? A tech boot camp kind of thing with a very predatory like IOU contract held over my head, which was hysterical in retrospect. I mean, okay, it was hysterical at the time. I'll be real, because like everyone knew that shit was unenforceable in court. It was essentially a non-compete, and like that was already legally tenuous back then. And then Biden just outright negated it when he was president. So basically, I had like a 2-year non-compete IOU held over my head for my training costs,
that's insane.
and eventually, I just waited out the time. I just like worked for the same corporation for 2 years until it was up, and then I job hopped and got much higher salaries after that.
Nice.
So I've had kind of a formal grounding in programming in many ways, but it took me a long time to kind of get to that point. I needed the right type of instruction to really get that kind of like foundational ground level style understanding of stuff.
Mm.
Yeah.
I'll say for myself, I graduated 3 months ago, and I think I
Oh.
picked the best time to like have a game design degree. Just in general.
Did you?
Yeah, it's
In
phenomenal.
Germany?
Yeah, oh, dude, it's so bad. This is so bad. This is so bad. I mean, I've
Oh, I'm
been,
sorry. Okay,
yeah,
you're
I
being
have,
sarcastic. Okay,
yeah,
I get you
I'd be
now.
sarcastic. Yeah, I, I mean, okay, so, God, in terms of like actual like work experience, right? I I don't think I've had a single like formal job sort of in the games industry. During my studies, I was working mostly in TV,
Yeah.
in like a student capacity as well. And like I don't know how it's in America, but like so a lot of the student jobs here, like we have this thing called a student job, and it's like sort of like legally set up where okay, you have to be a student to do it.
Yeah.
So obviously that kind of fell away when I graduated, and now I've been like sort of freelancing slash been unemployed since then.
Oof.
It's
Yeah,
very rough,
I
and
would not.
I have no expectation that I'll find anything in the games industry right now. So
Yeah.
I'm just taking my chances
Uh,
wherever.
I
Yeah.
I had a very similar experience getting a bachelor's of like a creative discipline. Like, so my bachelor of fine arts has made me more qualified to do everything except for animation.
Mm,
Like, I certainly learned a lot of skills doing that, but I didn't actually become more employable in the field that I studied for by doing all that. I mean, I sort of did, but not really. So the deal is like, the thing which I tell all my students is that for a creative field, you need to do the thing for free until someone's willing to pay you to do it.
mm,
That's then the breaks. Like
yeah.
you need to, the people who actually get jobs are A, never go to university in the first place for these fields, or B, they were doing it the entire damn time even before university. So
Yeah.
essentially, like, if you aren't already if you aren't already making games, you're never going to get a job making games, because
Yeah.
there's that saying from Baki, I think, where it's like someone who works hard can never beat someone who loves what they do.
Honestly, that
Yeah.
checks out. Yeah.
Because the people who love what they do are doing it all the time, and they're going to be so much stronger than someone who sees it as work in the first place.
Yeah.
So yeah, I hear about people getting degrees in game design or a master's in game design, and I'm like, oh, that's how's that going for you, buddy?
Yeah. I
Sorry,
was
man.
Nah, you're good. It's see, I've had no like illusions that oh my God, I'll be instantly employed, right? I was
Yeah.
pretty aware of like the sort of the challenges and
Oh yeah.
the tribulations with that. Um I mean, a lot of it is like, like kind of old school parents. You have to convince them that like what you're doing is like traditionally worthwhile in some capacity, that you're going a
In
somewhat
this
traditional
case,
path.
maybe not.
Yeah.
The other thing
Um,
is, like, I just doubt the ability of the university system to really provide an education on this topic.
oh yeah.
I'm always really like curious about whatever the schools are teaching, because like I need to do better than that, and because like I just like to keep tabs on it. So I am actually very curious about your education. What would you say that you got out of that? What would you say you learned that you couldn't have learned anywhere else?
God. Honestly, the reality is the program was not good. The program itself was not good. The only really redeemable thing about the program is that it was split so explicitly between theory and practice, and that
Mhm.
you were kind of forced to dive into it in that way.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Uh,
I often
yeah,
say that the best thing that a university program can do for people is basically just create a structured environment for them to build a portfolio
yeah,
with
oh
like
yeah,
someone who is experienced in the industry and therefore can kind of channel that crystallized industry experience into their students.
that is kind of the goal of Cologne Game Lab. Sort of from the outside, that's kind of how they pitch it to you as well. That like, okay, you're very naturally through this trial by fire gonna build a portfolio,
Yeah.
and build
I mean, that
experiences and
is
make
one of the
mistakes.
best
Yeah,
things they can do. I tell my students all the damn time, uh, hey, the best thing you can do for your career is to make a game, make like a finished game, and ship it in some way. What does
oh yeah,
ship it mean? Ship it means put it on a platform somewhere where it is being sold for money. That is the best thing you can possibly do for your career, because people want people that ship games. And you might know that I consulted on the game Desync
oh yeah.
like over about 10 years ago now. Uh, maybe a little less. But anyway, I consulted on that game for Sean Gabriel, and that guy he published the game, he shipped it, and then he immediately, well, almost immediately, got hired to work at this one game studio as a designer, and that was really
Nice.
cool. And then he went on to direct the game Kill Knight, which you might have heard of.
Oh, damn. I played it. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Right, right.
That is
So
kind of wild.
there
Okay.
you go.
Damn.
That's the career path right there.
Huh.
And it all
Yeah.
started as like this kind of crappy Unity game that he was making without any real experience of how to build a game like that. And he
Mm.
got super duper lucky, let's be real, to get picked up by Adult Swim Games as a publisher, who helped provide him like funding and connections to get all these other people to kind of fix up his game. But like you make a game and ship it, and that's how you get more opportunities.
Yeah. I can say just connections and um like that environment that is incredibly valuable. One of my best friends now, I met in university. He is originally from Taiwan, and he already had a um computer science degree when he started at Cologne Game Lab. So he's very experienced, and like now, just the thought that like, okay, when I have any kind of question, like, okay, how would you do this? I can ask him, right? And that's just something I wouldn't have had access to before. Even see a funny element is like I mentioned, I started in 2019, and like the physical environment of it was just great. Like the fact
Yeah.
that you were just in there with other people and like brainstorming and doing all the shit was awesome. And then, start of 2020, the thing happened, yeah.
The
COVID.
Thing, the
Yeah.
atrocities.
Oh yeah. Um, and dude, it did derail my college experience like a pretty significant amount. I want to say like it never felt the same after that. It's still like when I mean I still occasionally like I get to do a couple lectures here and there, yeah, and whenever I return, it still feels a little bit like ghost town, yeah. Like COVID hit it super hard. It is
Oh
insane.
yeah, that's been the case for all sorts of different things.
Yeah.
It's really crazy to see just how all sorts of different indie scenes, all sorts of different hell fighting game scenes have been devastated by COVID.
Yeah.
Like I was just in LA for Chain Shift, which was a fighting game tournament for
Mm.
Under Night in Birth, as well as like Melty Blood, some other games.
Hell yeah.
And I ended up spending like an extra week there, and I went to Little Tokyo, and it's like you can see all the businesses that got cleared out here.
See, I actually spent a couple months in America, like in 2024, and that was like, especially on the West Coast. Like I stayed mostly in the Seattle area, and that was an overwhelming thought that I had. Where okay, these cities they seem like weirdly deserted to like my European mind.
Yeah.
But in the back of my head, I was like, okay, is it that or is it COVID? Is it like post-COVID shit? Yeah.
It's a bit of both.
Yeah.
Okay, wait, which cities were you in?
Seattle, LA. Like Seattle and LA, I had that feeling like definitely pretty significantly. I mean,
No, I
LA
can
is
see.
weird because like you just do so much fucking highway driving.
Yes. Oh my God. Staying there for a week. So I've been kind of trying to scout out the place I'm gonna move to eventually. And
Yeah.
I'm kind of settling on New York City because A, I lived there for 4 years during university. B, LA sucks.
Mm,
Like I love the people there. I love the stuff there. I love the fact there's access to so many different hobbies that I do.
yeah.
But holy shit, the infrastructure is garbage. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I was also in Seattle for a wedding recently, for a friend of mine who works for Halo Studios, so that was
Ooh.
kind of funny. Oh goodness. It was like a
Uh.
full I mean, it wasn't a full-on nerd wedding, but they did like the playlist had some shout outs, you could say.
Fire.
So it was cool. It was really cool. A lot of his like associates from the studio were like his groomsmen. I got asked to be a groom's person, which was weird, but hey, I looked killer in that dress.
Fire.
So it was a fun event overall. I got a tiny taste of Seattle. I was staying in Bellevue, which is kind of like the rich folks neighborhood,
Oh yeah.
and I got to walk through Seattle rain, which cool.
Classic.
It I mean, it gave very standard American suburban city to me. Like it didn't seem especially dense. And I mean, like obviously,
Oh yeah.
like, coming from Germany, I imagine there's much more urban density out there than there is in practically any American city.
Oh yeah. I live specifically in West Germany. And
Ah,
it is like the densest sort of region in the whole country.
oh yeah.
Yeah. So
I
like
mean,
it was yeah, it was very weird to get used to.
if you ever compare to if you ever get the chance to visit New York City, I'd like to hear the comparison.
I actually did visit New York City. It was really
Oh
really cool. It was awesome.
yeah.
And it did. It's funny because like I mean the meme is that NYC is the greatest city in the world. Um,
Yeah.
and I think that's the thing. It is a really stark contrast to most American cities. To
Yeah.
like
There's no other city like it in this country.
yeah. Now obviously like a city like Cologne is not as dense with like skyscrapers
Yeah.
or whatever, right? Berlin is not either.
Yeah.
Um, but in terms of the density, New York was much more what I was used to, kind of.
Yeah. New York is the only. It's essentially the only city in the country that's really maintained the European style of density that
Yeah,
used to be common before cars.
yeah.
LA is like a demon built it. Oh my God.
It
I
is.
drove on I
Yeah,
got turned around so many times over little itty bitty like differences between the different like off ramps, on ramps, and all that shit. It sucked. It really sucked.
yeah. The whole time I
And
was
the gas is more
wondering.
expensive there. Why are they building their cities like this when they also charge so much for gas, when there's like such high taxes on gas. Like the I get the incentive structure. The incentive structure is to like put a tax on carbon in order to fund movement to like green type shit.
Yeah.
But like if you don't rebuild the fucking cities, you're never gonna get there. You're just gonna end up with a bunch of electric cars, which isn't a real solution.
I was told like a lot of the highways are like sort of low-key owned by the KKK and they don't want to sell to brown people.
Wow. Okay, that I don't know if I believe that in the first place, but we know the highways were built for racist purposes.
Yeah.
Like that's not a secret. Like a lot of these highways are built specifically for the purposes of segregation, which
Oh yeah.
cool. I mean, that's so many things in this country. I live in Tempe, Arizona, which is a part of like the Phoenix metropolitan area, which is very similar to LA in that like it's a bunch of like it's essentially one big city, but it's split up into like 7 smaller cities. So we have this one big urban area. We have a giant highway loop going around it. Like we have a bunch of different highway loops going around. We actually have like the weirdest like thing because there's like some preservation land they can't build over or something. So this city is the 4th largest in the country. Pretty big. But it's also just like suburban hellscape the whole way. There's so much single family housing that like it might as well just be another fucking suburb. It's barely a city.
Yeah. The place I stayed is this little it's this sort of semi-island like on the opposite side. Like God, I don't know how to describe it. Like basically you cross the ocean for a little bit for like half an hour and then you're in Seattle.
Yeah.
Like I stayed on the other side. And
Yeah.
there's this little place called Bremerton. And what struck me as like really dystopian is that like all the bus stops were named after the like the commercial location they were at. So you had a bus stop called Walmart, a bus
Oh
stop called
gosh, yeah,
McDonald's,
yeah, yeah.
and I was like, okay, I'm truly in
That was
America.
me visiting San Francisco recently. So I was out in San Francisco for GDC actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oakland is cool. San Francisco kind of mid. Okay, San Francisco has that style of urban density that I like, but like
Okay.
it just feels incredibly soulless and corporate. Like I feel an evil when I go to San Francisco and it's not in the urban planning department. Uh like I visited the what was it? The TD Bank Garden, was it? Something like that. I visited some
Yeah.
fucking no, it was the Salesforce Garden. There's a little garden on top of like a bus hub that like you go up like a series of escalators and elevators and shit and you end up in this garden and it's like okay, that's interesting. GDC was really fun. It's way too expensive. I plan to just not buy a badge next year and basically just bum on all the events, assuming I do go back next year.
I would love to go as well. I did not get to visit SF at all.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
But if you do go to GDC, I highly recommend just skipping on the badge. I mean, okay, maybe 1 year get the badge, assuming that it's affordable for you, which I doubt it will be because it cost me over $700.
Oh yeah.
Or about $700, something like that, which is a ridiculous sum of money. That great. So that was the whole thing. I did end up meeting a whole bunch of really cool people out there, mostly at like the off GDC events or like just hanging out in the Yerba Garden area. So like basically GDC is in these 2 different buildings. One of them is kind of the show floor area where you pick up your badge and there's like a show floor down there, like downstairs, and all the like game demos are there. Versus the what's it called? Versus like the exposition hall or whatever. Basically the hall where they're giving all the talks. And kind of like sandwiched between these 2 buildings is a giant garden that they've begun to enclose, which is weird, but whatever. They had like people playing video game music there the entire fucking event.
Fire.
I got to hear someone sing the worst rendition of Last Surprise I've ever heard. It's like, you never see it coming! And I'm like, oh my god. It was hysterical. Someone did Snake Eater, there was a Tetris thing, a lot of that. So that's just constantly playing the entire time you're there as long as like the event is live, basically.
The only major GDC thought that I can share is that one of my sort of like closest instructors, my favorite instructors, she also mentored me on my my thesis. She was like at GDC I think last year, and she fucking hated it. And it was also the fact that I think she was like deeply pregnant at the time as well. Yeah, it was not a good time.
Yeah, fair enough. I will, as I said, I met a whole bunch of amazing contacts there. I
Mm,
actually met up with one of them while I was in LA recently
cool.
at Glitch City, which is like a small indie like co-working space.
Oh, that sounds familiar.
Yeah. There's a bunch of these like all over the country. Actually, I recently started like I was like, wait a second, Phoenix probably has like some sort of indie scene, so I'm trying to get more in touch with that. I joined the IGDA, is that it? Yeah, IGDA thing for Phoenix. So I'm trying to get to know some people. Uh, I know about a couple of them out in New York City. Like there's Boshi's place is the big one. Boshi like blue Yoshi. If you just Google Boshi, you'll see like this blue Yoshi that is kind of funky looking. I think it's a little fat or whatever.
Oh yeah.
I'm gonna yeah. Oh, it's the one with like the hard sunglasses or whatever. That's what it is. It's not fat. It looks a little more Velociraptor like.
Yeah.
So Boshi's place is a big one that's pretty well known. One which I visited last time I was in New York was Gumbo. Gumbo is in the Dumbo part of Brooklyn. Dumbo is named for something or another. Like New York City has like all these different little districts that are named for silly things like no, I'm thinking West Hollywood. No. What else? Chelsea? No. Hell's Kitchen? Okay, Hell's Kitchen counts, but it's not like a weird acronym kind of thing. Anyway, so Dumbo is in Brooklyn, and Gumbo is games in Dumbo, basically. uh,
Mm,
and I got to visit that co-working space. It's kind of like a collective kind of thing. People pay into it, and they kind of get access to the space. And some people collaborate in there, some people don't. It seemed like a really cool place, and I'd love to visit that again.
sick.
Uh, so there's a lot of that kind of thing around the country, and I'd like to get more in touch with that kind of thing. And GDC definitely helped me with making some connections there.
Mm.
Yeah.
Um, is Gamescom like interesting to you at all? Because obviously that's soon. That's very
Maybe.
relevant for me.
Gamescom is in Germany, isn't it?
Yeah, it's in my home city in Cologne.
Oh, damn.
Yeah. That's what for me. I
August.
live like 10 minutes away as well. Like for me, it's like it's been a thing where especially now that I have more sort of industry connections and all that shit. Like I get to see a lot of people around Gamescom time. They're all like, "Oh my god, gotta book a hotel." Blah, blah. And for me, it's like, I live here. It's pretty sick.
That's funny. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I ended up going with like an Airbnb for what's it called for GDC, and that worked out really great. I
Mm,
had some great roommates with me. One of whom I met at Gumbo. Well, I actually met them through game design skills. They were like a former student turned worker for the company.
mm,
And so I ended up meeting up with them at Gumbo, and then we ended up rooming together for GDC, and that was a great experience.
sick.
Yeah.
Hmm. So, I guess
Gamescom, I
more.
probably can't do it. By the way, I do not have the money right now,
Oh yeah.
and
No, I get you.
that's really sudden.
Yeah.
I'll consider it in the future. I'd love to see Europe,
Hell yeah.
assuming I am allowed to leave the country.
Oh yeah. Maybe next election cycle.
Oh gosh,
Gamescom will still be around. Don't worry.
I'm sure it will.
Uh,
I might not be. I hope I'm still
oh
around
my
by the
god.
next election cycle.
Um, God, I just heard about the like trans athlete legislation in like I
So
think
that's
Virginia and like a couple other states is
I mean,
insane.
the devastating thing there, and the Supreme Court decision in particular, isn't like the specific decision to ban trans athletes, because that sucks. That's great. The purpose of that is to build like a legal doctrine that
Yeah.
eventually says that Title IX is not applicable to trans people in general. That we don't get Title
Mm.
IX protections, which means that we don't get to work anymore.
Uh, Yeah, this is very, very scary.
I better start voice training
God,
because I am capable of passing, but yeah.
I'm so sorry. Like, I don't even know what to say. That's just awful.
I like the gallows humor. It's always funny.
Mm,
So
God.
that is what it is. How about we talk a little about depth?
Yes. I was gonna actually, yeah, I was gonna segue into that because I want to say, especially in my chat, uh, it probably is the main thing you're like quote unquote famous for.
I
Um,
guess so, yeah. I mean,
yeah,
it's kind of the depth theory is kind of my baby of all
yeah.
things that I've done. Uh, I consider it to be kind of an evolution of Raph Koster's theory of fun. And hey, one
Mm,
day I would really love to publish a book called A Theory of Depth for Game Design in much the same way that
mm,
he did for fun.
fire.
So there you go.
Um, it's in. I think the really interesting thing about it is that it is such a like ubiquitous word and such an easy to come to word, right? Like you would like it's very easy to think, okay, games should be deep, huh? But I think before your work on it, I was not aware of like a formal kind of attempt to really define it.
I mean, there hasn't really been. Okay, that's not true. Uh, I where did I read this? Probably on Raph Koster's blog itself. There have been some formal attempts to create kind of metrics for what depth could be.
Mm.
Uh, I'm trying to remember what it was, but there was a very like computation heavy thing that I remember seeing on Raph Koster's blog. I'm gonna look it up and see if I can find it, but
Mm.
no guarantees. Uh, so there's I don't think there's been a lot of stuff, but like the word depth has been around in this particular usage since at least mid 20th century. Like I know that there were like
Oh
chess
wow.
professionals that were talking that were saying chess has depth like mid 20th century in like the 1950s perhaps. Or like comparing the depth of chess versus Go during that time
Mm.
period. And since then, we've had like a lot of advances in the way that we talk about this thing. Like the word possibility space was coined by someone or another. I'm actually curious who coined that. But yeah, the
Mm.
word possibility space was coined by someone or another, and that word has kind of like entered the popular lexicon in various ways. And I kind of wanted to build on that because like people have been saying forever people have been saying the word depth forever to describe games. They're like,
Yeah.
okay, this game is deep. 1933, holy shit.
For the chess thing or
For probability space, no, that's
oh
probability space.
oh wow.
That's not possibility space, but it's the same thing. It's the set of all possible outcomes in a system. Huh?
Okay.
Maybe this
Hmm.
person. Oh no! This person just did a typo. It is possibility space. They just did a typo in their thing.
Okay.
That's kind of funny. Uh, so the deal is this term has been around since 1933, I suppose, and it kind of like made its way into games, which makes sense. A lot of these concepts that even I pull on come from mathematics in some way or another. I've said that a better understanding of mathematics has shaped a lot of my understanding of games in various ways. I try
Mm.
to approach things from like kind of as hard a math perspective as I reasonably can, but this is obviously still an art form. You're not going to end up with like a mathematical theorem for how deep a game is or something like that.
Yeah.
And you can even see this in the theory that I have. Like, so I kind of describe it as these three filters. There's possibility space, differentiated depth, and then relevant depth. And possibility space is a very hard mathematical thing. That is something which you could theoretically map out for a system, and that will be like a 100% guaranteed number.
Yeah.
Versus differentiated depth, which that is I try to make it like as hard as I can, but what counts as differentiated is going to be a little fuzzy and subjective. So that's just kind of nature of the territory. and I've kind of tried to make that a little more hard over time by talking about how that's created using asymmetry. And obviously, relevant depth is just completely subjective at that point. Relevant depth is like, this is entirely just what the user base of the game is doing, and that's going to grow and that's going to shrink as people's opinions of the game change, as people's skill level changes, as people's knowledge of the game changes, as people optimize the game, as all sorts of these things go on.
Mm. I guess what I find interesting about that is that you've pretty much stuck to this idea for like as far as I can see, like since 2015, and like
Pretty much.
I guess cautiously refined it here and there, but like
Oh yeah.
since I read it, it doesn't seem to have drastically changed. Do you feel like there have been like any sort of major revelations or like
I feel like
yeah.
quantifying differentiated depth as asymmetry is a big one, but largely no. Largely no, I don't think so. I mean,
Okay.
I did an article on Design Space not that long ago,
Mm.
and Design Space you could see as like a fourth circle outside of possibility space. Design Space is all the games that you could make instead of the one you are making.
Okay. Gotcha.
Within like the same sort of set of mechanics. This is a term that comes from Magic the Gathering designers, who are also a very lovely resource for all sorts of like systemic thinking. And if you talk to players of Magic the Gathering, like anyone who's been like in it for a long time, especially the more competitive players, they're all very literate in game design, which I find to be incredible. It's really, really interesting how literate these particular players are in game design. And a big reason for that is, of course, that Mark Rosewater, loves to blog about. So, okay, Mark Rosewater loves to come up with terms. He loves to name things in these different ways. He's the one who came up with the term design space. So he really loves to name things, and he really loves to share that naming, that convention, that strategy with the Magic player base so that the Magic player base understands where the game is coming from over time. And he does like the Drive to Work podcast where he talks about each new set that comes out and what their ideas were going into the set. Like for example, I remember the Lord of the Rings set, and he was talking about how they really needed more evasion in this set, but there aren't a lot of things that have some sort of evasion in Middle Earth. You don't. There's only so many tramplers. There's only so many flyers, so you can't like kind of more evenly distribute that across all the different colors. So they needed a way to give creatures evasion that was not one of the conventionally held things. And what they ended up doing for that was the whole "the ring tempts you" mechanic, which gives a creature a non-keyworded version of Skulk. Skulk is a keyword that says basically this creature cannot be blocked by creatures of greater power.
Okay.
So there needs to be like a certain amount of evasion for creatures in any given set. And that this typically takes the form of like flying versus reach versus trample versus menace and these sorts of things. Because Magic, if you don't have anything that has evasion, if you don't have any of these keywords in different ways, then what you end up with in Magic typically is this very kind of linear progression of mutual annihilation or just parity. So like if so Magic really wants these evasive keywords in various ways to try to break parity. Parity is the state where like both of you have like a set of things built up and you really want to kind of get around that. And if you were to just throw your things directly into one another, you'd have this mutual annihilation where both of your armies are now dead and neither person wants to do that. So you just can keep on gumming up the works until eventually something pushes through. And Magic doesn't want that to be the case. But if you don't have something else to kind of break through there, like flying, unblockable, menace, etc., then you end up stuck in that state. So Magic needs to have keywords to create these kinds of disparities to break parity. And in the Lord of the Rings set, they saw that they didn't have a lot of room within the within kind of the narrative of Lord of the Rings within that setting to give things evasion. So instead of that, they ended up turning the the ring tempts you mechanic into a form of evasion so that they could accomplish their broader goal.
Mm.
Yeah.
Lucid in chat is saying Destiny 2 is also notable for copying Magic's keyword system with its own verb system. Have you played Destiny 2? Do you know anything about that?
I have not played Destiny 2. Let me see. I know that Mugenics was also very heavily inspired by Magic's keyword system. I mean, there's a lot of things that take from Magic's keyword system in various ways. It's a very compositional style of design that lets you kind of just bash things together, and you end up with interesting results in one way or another.
Mm. So one thing I'm kind of curious about is that, just speaking very, very generally, I think we agree that depth is like good, right? Depth is a desirable quality.
I would hope so.
It's a nice thing to have.
It's one of the things that I prioritize most highly in games.
Yeah. See, I don't know how you feel about this, but I feel like when I read a lot of sort of game critique and game reviews, especially like mainstream ones, it feels like, especially when we're talking about like traditional games, right? Like games about sort of adversity, challenge. We're sort of grasping at this idea that, like, yeah, this should be interesting or strategic or whatever somehow, but like it's actually very rare that people latch onto this idea of depth or like trying to think of the game in this rubric of, okay, is this deep, yes or no? Do you have like ideas for why that is, or do you perceive it that way as well?
I mean, absolutely. I mean, I absolutely see people grasping for words all the time.
Yeah.
And for a very long time, I was the one grasping for words. So I started writing about games before I started my blog. Obviously, I wrote for a website called Gather Your Party for a while.
Yeah.
I started first writing essays on games in about 2013. I joined Gather Your Party in that same year. And before that, I was in some like hardcore gaming spaces that don't exist anymore. And I was kind of trying to grasp at my own system of values. And I very much had my values at the time shaped by the people around me, but I was trying to like move towards something to describe gameplay. And it's like, how do we make gameplay better? What does that even mean? And in many ways, people will say, oh, the gameplay is the most important part of the game.
Yeah.
But in practice, that's kind of a tokenism. It's not something that people sincerely advocate for or like sincerely believe about games necessarily. They don't speak for it in their actions. It's kind of a very token value. They're like, oh yeah, gameplay is the most important part of the game, more important than graphics, story, immersion, whatever. And in practice, people don't tend to what is it? People don't actually advocate for gameplay the way that they say they do. And so I grew up on 4chan essentially from like I don't know 2006 to 2016, and I was on 4chan/V obviously. So I participated in all those discussions, and they have a certain taste in video games. I don't think it's a bad taste, certainly. So I was introduced to a lot of really interesting games through the communities that like I kind of came up in, and it's so hard to like say like what makes this game good versus this other game. And there's that word depth again. That word depth pops up, but what does this mean in practice? It's kind of this black box. A lot of these things are like black boxes. We don't have the language to describe what we even want to describe in the first place. And I come from animation, and animation does not have this problem, in part because let me try to remember the names. Frank and Ollie Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnston from Walt Disney Studios. They were like some of the Disney's legendary animators, some of their 9 old men, as they're called. And these are the guys who did like the Golden Age Disney animations. They wrote a book called The Illusion of Life, and this book included what they called the 12 Principles of Animation.
Yeah.
And this is a standard part of animation curriculum for everyone. And obviously I knew about this before I even got into college. So like I just known about this stuff, and it was like, oh, there's this very clear rubric for what can make an animation good. If an animation is good, it's going to follow some or all of these 12 principles. Obviously, maybe not all, but like it's going to follow a lot of these principles. It's going to demonstrate these different things. And where is that for games? That's the question I was asking myself in 2013. Where is that for games? What does that mean for games? And so I was kind of grasping at straws. Like, I came up with all these different little rubrics for values and stuff, and like, so a kind of it, if you don't know what you're looking for, you kind of start with the things that are obvious to you. And like one which a lot of people start with is difficulty.
Yeah.
Like, difficulty is, it's not 100% clear. It's kind of difficult to measure, but difficulty is something you can see and you can certainly grasp at. It's like, okay, this game is hard and that makes it good. Does it though? And I kind of had this encounter with Super Meat Boy in college, and I didn't like Super Meat Boy. I still don't like Super Meat Boy, really. I also don't like Celeste for essentially the same reason. I like the Celeste speedrun a little better, but like, it's the base game of Celeste is very much, hey, just repeat this sequence of inputs over and over again until you do it good enough that you get to the next screen. And that's also what Super Meat Boy is. And I didn't like that very much. And I was kind of like, okay, this game is hard, but it sucks. It's boring. And when you run into something like that, it's like, or I also played like I Want to Be the Guy, the movie, the game. I'm sure like a lot of people have played that one.
Oh, yeah.
There were a lot of troll games in the days that were like super duper hard in various ways, and it's like, okay, this is clearly like, this isn't hard to make per se. Like, it's very easy to just make a game that is arbitrarily as easy or hard as you want it to be. How do we make this more interesting? And so I kind of had to be like, okay, there has to be something other than challenge here. And the consensus from the spaces that I was in at the time was, oh, no, Super Meat Boy just actually isn't challenging at all. It's actually an easy game. And I'm like, I don't think that's it. And like, certainly there's a bit of an argument to be made there, because like, it was one of the first games of its time period to feature infinite lives. Because before that, like, kind of the paradigm was that you'd have like a set number of lives and you get a game over when you ran out of lives and stuff. And Super Meat Boy are just like, nope, just restart. Which has become a lot more normal since then in all games. And so the consensus from like that group was, oh, you can just restart every level, you can just retry it until you're good, you never get a game over, therefore Super Meat Boy's testing you on a much shorter time period, therefore Super Meat Boy's actually really easy. And I'm like, I don't think that's it. I think that we have to have a value other than this.
Yeah.
And the thing which I didn't realize at the time was that the spaces I was spending time in, and this isn't a description of /V in particular, but a description of like the other websites that I was on, those spaces were very heavily like immersion influenced. Like their strongest value was immersion. It wasn't gameplay.
See, when I think sort of to my experiences on V, that sort of checks out. I was never like, maybe this is shocking, I was never that big on 4chan, actually. I was not a heavy 4chan user. And I've always perceived the culture as like very kind of ranty, wishy-washy, very very unserious kind of.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, for me,
2015-ish, in about 2014, 2015-ish, I kind of was like, these people are never going to get anywhere. These people want to tear everything down, but they don't have any values to rebuild it with.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I was. They wanted to tear down the industry. They wanted to tear down the journalist outlets. They wanted to tear down essentially everything. And just like burn the whole thing and start over, basically. But they didn't have any values with which to rebuild. I would describe the resentment of 4chan towards like mainstream video game industry less as an honest critique and more as a resentment that the games they like aren't getting the good scores and aren't selling the way they want to, and aren't being. It's just this culture of resentment rather than a culture of trying to understand anything or build anything And when that's all you have, you're never going to get anywhere. So I was like, okay, if I want to see change in the world, I need to build it myself, and so there's my blog.
Nice.
Yeah.
So what you said with Super Meat Boy, that resonated with me in a weird way because, for my thesis, I read this book called Half Real. It's from the early 2000s, and it's sort of about, uh, like like where the game, like ends and where the real world begins and all that stuff. And speaking of games in a very fundamental kind of way. And one word that the author Jesper Juhl uses here is mental challenge, and he specifically
Mm.
references Sid Meier as well, where okay,
Oh, yeah.
like the objective of a game should be to provide um like mental challenge in the form of like interesting decisions. Now that's still kind of it still doesn't explain sort of how we get there, but and like I
Oh,
mean
yeah.
the book does propose a couple things, but I guess that's an early example of also kind of grasping at this idea of like okay there has to be something more to it, yeah.
I actually ran into something very interesting recently. Someone was recommending a book. I'm not sure what book, but there was a perspective in it saying that games, by virtue of their interactivity, cast light onto our own thought processes. And one
Okay.
way of viewing this is the aesthetic of thought. I don't think that's 100% correct, but it certainly does. I think it's a really neat way of putting it.
Mm,
The aesthetic of thought. That we're by building games, we're kind of engaging in this process of aesthetizing the way that we think about things uh, into an art form, basically. Because like I believe that art forms essentially are engaging in different types of aesthetics.
mm,
They're the creation of beauty through different means for the purpose of being beautiful.
mm. This is sort of a kind of random aside, but like I think you consulted on this video here, right, by Turbo Button, Defining Depth.
Oh yeah, I
Um,
did.
yeah,
That's an old
I think
one.
that may have been how I discovered you originally. I'm not sure exactly. You've sort of
Oh, it's the beauty. Oh, I found out what the name of the book was. It's The Beauty of Games by Frank Lance. Okay, it
oh,
figures
dude,
that he put it.
Frank Lance is actually somebody I've been studying recently as well for a couple other things.
Oh,
Yeah,
I shook hands with him once in New York City at the
nice.
NYU Game Center.
Hell yeah. Okay, I'll check the book out. Nice. Do you sort of I feel like this. I mean, this video. I don't know if you've seen it, but like after you consulted on it, but it's like it's got 130,000 views. I want to say this is probably like big piece of exposure for a lot of those ideas. Do you have kind of thoughts on how that shook out?
I honestly I haven't thought about it since it came out. It's been a
Gotcha.
long time. It's good that the exposure is out there. Certainly I want to be putting out more YouTube content in the future. I
Nice.
have like 2 to 3 different videos. I have 2 videos drafted up, and I want a third one on depth itself at some point.
Nice.
The 2 I'm working on are one on the logic of different platformer game jumping code, and the other one I'm
Mm,
working on is basically my parry thesis, my thesis on why parrying sucks.
hell yeah. I think. See, I mean, I did a very like loose, casual, like the Perry at the start of the Perry slop epidemic. I sort of gave my 2 cents. But I'd be hyped to
So
see your take.
I mean,
Yeah,
I've been on this beat for forever. I
mm,
have like so many older articles on parries and parrying. So like I have one from
yeah,
2016 called "The Issues Slash Joys of Parrying," and it very much talks about this exact problem. The issue with parrying is that it is its own system by itself, which can beat anything that the game throws at you. In
yeah,
games where parries can beat any attack, the only system you need to learn is parrying. Parrying in most games has no element of spacing, only the element of timing. So you tend to lose out on a lot of the dynamic spacing challenges that go into a game, reducing a game to just a timing challenge. A tough timing challenge, but still just a timing challenge. And then I talk a bit about Street Fighter 3 Third Strike and how that kind of does its thing, but then like how in single player games in particular, parries kind of ruin it. And I also give some credence to the people that really hated Street Fighter 3 for being the parry game, because like parries do detract from a lot of kind of the Street Fighter fundamentals
Oh
that
yeah.
people love about Street Fighter.
It's so funny.
And
Sorry to interrupt you. I feel like I've seen it very much that like people who are not actually that familiar with Third Strike, who don't actually play that much, they will cite it as like sort of a gotcha, like, yeah, this game proves the parries are good actually. And like, have you seen the Daigo clip? And then they don't know that Daigo doesn't like Third Strike.
yeah, that was not Daigo's game.
Yeah.
He certainly got a great clip in that game, but
Yeah.
that was not Daigo's game, and they reenacted that whole thing like years later, but Justin Wong still beat his ass.
Yeah. That's so funny.
Yeah. So there you go. But the thing is, like, parries. So I mean, that's also a good example of how adding more elements, how expanding the possibility space of a game can actually decrease the depth of a game.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you add parries to a game, you add these new possibilities. Certainly, there can be like the Daigo parry becomes possible, but because you've made the Daigo parry possible, you now remove the corner fireball trap.
Yeah.
So you still have that possibility in the system, but it's no longer a part of the relevant depth of the game. People in Third Strike don't do fireball wars. They don't do corner fireball traps. They don't do all this stuff that you do in the other Street Fighter games, or even in other fighting games. There's all these different possibilities that are still possible. They're still there in the possibility space. They're still there in the differentiated depth, but they're no longer a part of the relevant depth. And that's kind of like, that's where I like to say that no work of art can be everything. No game can be everything. Because by the process of putting more things into the game, you're then shuffling some things out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a big thing which I like to say, because some people like to say like that ultimately depth is just a theory of complexity, but really it's not just complexity. It's really about like the way you use that complexity. And necessarily because no game can be everything, we need different games. Different games will explore different possibility spaces. And if we don't build different games, then we're only ever going to be exploring the same possibility spaces. And you might make like an Uber game that has like this gigantic relevant depth, but it's never going to include the game states and possibilities that'll exist in a more limited game. And so both these things deserve to exist.
That is something I've come back to a lot as well, the differentiation between complexity and depth. Because I think with depth, for me, it is always, there's always this overarching idea of like, I'm in pursuit of a goal, right? Which complexity doesn't really imply like that.
Yes.
Complexity is like just the complexity of like interactions that are possible. That's how I would kind of say it.
So I would say that complexity is very directly possibility space. And you create possibility space by like creating nuanced mechanics that can have like a range of different possible outputs. And then also combinatorics, where like you can combine those different mechanics together in some way to create an even greater combined set of possibilities. And that's very much a complexity thing. And so you get a game like Skyrim, which has a billion weapons and such, but those weapons are then all very symmetric to one another. Or like Breath of the Wild 2 with its combat system. All the weapons in Breath of the Wild, or most of the weapons in Breath of the Wild, are very symmetric to one another. They all kind of work the same way, more or less, in most circumstances.
With your earlier example where you said that adding more possibilities may decrease the relevant depth. One example I instantly had to think of was Resident Evil 5, where they added the menu reload. That obviously like very directly kills the like the time commitment of having to manually reload, right?
Yeah.
Do you have see, and that's something I've kind of gone back and forth on, because like and I guess it is an example where maybe the way you evaluate a game is not purely based on depth, sort of in this linear way. Because I thought about it, I was like, I kind of like the idea that with the menu reload, it is a contained little window where I feasibly have, a set amount of time to reload this many weapons, and then the faster I do the inputs, the more I can do with it. That is sort of cool about it, but that idea that some of the relevant depth is going away, that never goes away, right?
There you go.
Yeah.
So certainly, like, things can get overshadowed by other
Yeah.
things if you're just careless.
Yeah.
And kind of, I mean, the work of balancing a game, taken at the most extreme, the work of balancing a game is about making sure that all of these different possibilities don't overshadow one another, so that everything can kind of shine in its own light.
Yeah. Now I don't know if I'm super comfortable talking about my academic work here on the stream. I guess I'll just very briefly touch on it, but
I mean, I would love to hear about your academic work. As I said, I'm really curious about what's going on in the university system in all different ways.
Yeah, I mean, I sent you my MA thesis the other day. I'm curious, how deep did you get in?
I gave it a quick skim. I'm seeing like the push and pull method, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So one thing which we've talked about in in Mastering Game Mechanics, there's this one section where we talk about tension. And I never really liked the original description of tension. Let me find where it is. Damn it. Okay, can't find it right now. But really, not there. Anyway, so I didn't really like the original description of tension. It's like the way that like my co-writer described it, Alex Brazy, he was like, okay, tension is like there's a rope and like the rope is like loose and floppy, but if you like pull it between two things, it's now tight and taut and stuff, and it feels like that. And I'm like, this is an involved metaphor that like no one got. No one was getting that. And
Yeah.
so one thing which I've been thinking about for a number of years is conflicting priorities
Oh, yeah.
specifically. And reading your paper, it's like, oh, this is very much conflicting priorities. What's going on here? Which
Yes.
I actually published an article more recently on this topic, like conflicting priorities as a dialectic. So like it's titled. It's actually like from April 7th. It's like the third article down on the front page of my site. Dialectics and conflicting priorities: the tensions that bind games together. Because like I'm thinking about this, and it's like, what is all this? And it's like, okay, if you think about it, this is kind of a dialectic, that there's this contradiction present in the thing. What's the conflicting priorities and stuff. So like the classic example that I always like to think about for this kind of thing is the Toho games. So in Toho, there's this little line on the screen called the point of collection, and if you go above that line, you will collect all the different power-ups that are on the screen. But because that line is very high up on the screen, that's where A, the enemies are hanging out, and B, where the enemies spawn in the first place. So in order to collect all the items on the screen instantly, you have to put yourself closer to the thing that is trying to kill you.
Yeah.
And in another way, like the gathering item drops in a shmup itself is kind of a conflicting priority of, okay, I want to be in position to grab this thing, but the bullets are also moving around at the same time. So by forcing me to move in all these different ways to pick up these things, I'm also putting myself at risk of getting hit by these bullets. And this sort of conflicting priority thing is what I think really makes games interesting in a way. And it seems like that's what you were kind of grasping for in your push and pull thing in your paper here.
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
So like depth was kind of the thing I was initially interested in, but I got kind of cold feet at the idea of sort of, okay, I have to eventually I would have to engage with the idea of like, okay, games have a possibility space, and like how deep does it go, and how do the things interact, right? And through sort of a process of iteration, me and my instructor, we decided, okay, maybe we have to find something kind of like similar but like different, and sidestep the issue. And I think what really, I mean, the central example that I keep coming back to in the thesis is Crazy Taxi. And what you just said, the thing about the conflicting priorities, That really did capture me, right?
So I'd say that this tension, this style of dialectic, is the thing that makes relevant depth exist.
Mm-hmm.
Like without this, there is no relevant depth. If there is, so the key. Are you familiar with the concept of theodicy? I think it's pronounced.
Ooh, I don't know.
So theodicy is a theological and philosophical argument that attempts to justify God's absolute goodness, power, and wisdom in the face of the existence of evil and suffering. So says Google Gemini. So there's a saying, there's like a way of framing this as the existence of God is like a three-legged stool, or like the problem of evil is a three-legged stool that basically you have these three different contradictory things framed by this one. There's this one quote by that's allegedly attributed to the philosopher Epicurus. If God is all good, then if God is like if he's all powerful, all knowing, and all good, how is there evil? Clearly, if he's all powerful and all knowing, he can't be all good. If he's capable of preventing evil and he knows about evil, then he can't be all good. If he's all knowing and all good, then clearly he's incompetent. He's not capable of preventing evil. If he's all powerful and all good, then like he just doesn't know shit's going on. He's like clueless, something like that. And we have a very similar thing in games. We have so kind of the goal of the game designer is to set up a situation in which the player is torn between these conflicting possibilities, and they can never cleanly resolve that tension.
Yeah,
they're stuck there. Every choice they make will help them stay balanced, but it won't help them overcome the problem of balancing. Like it's kind of like balancing like a what do you say, like I mean, have you ever walked a slack line before, or like a tightrope?
God, I've definitely. I don't think it was a rope exactly, but I've definitely done like little tight walks.
So I used to be really, really good at it. I could do it backwards even.
Damn. Okay.
So I have a clip of myself doing it backwards from like pre-transition, but basically, like as you're balancing on this thing, you can't stay still. You need to constantly be making these micro adjustments back and forth to keep yourself balanced. And a good game is much the same way. You can't ever end up in a state of, if you arrive at the solution, there isn't a game anymore, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so a good game is going to keep you from ever reaching a true solution. They're going to continue throwing things at you to kind of throw you off your beat to do different stuff. Like Getting Over with Bennett Foddy is one of my favorite games, and the reason why that game is so difficult is largely because there's such high input sensitivity to that game, which is, you might remember from the beginning, one of my 4 different components to dynamism in skill tests. There's like just so much input sensitivity in that game with like such a large possibility space for exactly how your momentum, your friction, all this other stuff is directed, that you can't ever replicate the same set of motions twice.
Yeah.
And so you're always kind of counterbalancing yourself against whatever your last action was. You're always kind of like correcting based on like these little micro movements that you happen to make in the process of trying to move forwards. And I think that's where the relevant depth comes from.
Yeah. One of the examples that I really latched onto was just parking in Crazy Taxi, where okay, so you have, I'm showing it on screen right now, you have this radius where parking is allowed, right? Where if you come to a stop here, the customer will enter your car, the animation will play. And what you naturally kind of understand is that, okay, when this is happening, the timer in the game keeps going. It keeps depleting. And so you immediately have an incentive, okay, I want to park as close as possible to cut down the length of that animation where the customer enters my vehicle. However, the closer you come, when you collide with the customer, they will dodge the taxi, and that will put them further away, right? And that's a
Oh
very
yeah,
easy to understand conflict. And then
that's a really good one. That's
yeah.
like bocce ball, I think, or something. What the hell is the name of that one sport where like you're shoving those little discs or balls or whatever, and you're trying to get it as close to the edge as possible without going over?
I think I know what you mean. I just googled
Bocce ball?
Baki. I
No,
just googled Baki
bocce,
like that and like the manga.
B-O-C-C-E. B-O-C-C-E. Ancient
Oh,
lawn bowling game.
gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, all
I think yeah, it looks like bocce ball's the one. So
the senior citizens up near my place, they play this all the time.
yeah. So like there's a bunch of games with this premise that you want to get as close as possible without going over. Another good example of this is curling. You familiar with the Canadian sport of curling?
Yeah.
It's in the Olympics these days. It's pretty well known. But curling is very similar in that like you're trying to land this thing exactly on the target. And so you have to like do a good stone throw, you have to do good sweeping on the ice in order to get it as close to the center as possible without going over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the reasons I used the crazy tax example as the central thing in the thesis was, okay, it does very naturally reveal all the components of this, what I ended up calling push and pull, right? Where, okay, like you already mentioned, the input sensitivity, right? The fact that you have
Yeah.
analog steering, you have a vehicle that moves like at gradual speeds, that gradually
Yeah.
comes to a stop.
It's creating like a lot of nuance there, which is my
Yeah.
word for like when a mechanic itself has a bunch of different states.
Yeah.
So and when you have nuance, you end up with a larger possibility space. So like the input, there's a high correlation between the range of possible inputs versus the range of possible outputs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that was central was having some overarching elements that connect the conflicting elements, right? Where in this case it's a timer, yeah.
Yeah.
The timer as this super central important thing that you need to keep in mind, where everything is sort of affected by the timer in a way. That is what allows the things to like gel and key here in the first place.
Yeah. Because you're always trying. I mean, time is such a good.
It's a cheat code.
Time is such a good metric for this sort of thing.
Yeah.
Because everything's based on time to some degree or another. I mean, that's why speedrunning works for so many games, because you can time practically anything, and it'll end up. It kind of ends up creating dynamics even where it makes things that weren't important in the base game become important
Oh yeah.
in a lot of ways. Because like in Legend of Zelda or whatever, there's a lot of these little cutscenes that don't really matter to whether or not you complete the game. But if you're speedrunning it, suddenly you want to find the best way to avoid even playing all of these cutscenes.
Yeah.
You don't even want them to trigger.
Yeah. Okay, Celia, I have this is completely fucking random. This is another topic that came up in the Discord the other day. Obviously, the Irish boogeyman, Matthew Matosis, he released his he released his little video the other day. I did my little response to it. I haven't uploaded the video version yet, but that's still coming. I guess if you want to give your thoughts more generally, you're free to do so. One thing I wanted to ask you about is the whole hitboxes thing, because that's something that I've given some thought, and I think you were saying in the Discord that like the idea of a hitbox ideally matching the visuals all the time is like tech fetishism or something.
Probably not the right word, but that's usually how it kind of ends up, is like tech fetishism, where because specifically the whole thing of the hitboxes not lining up with the exact visuals is usually like, oh, we need to do this to save processor power, but in an ideal world where we'd have infinite processing power, we'd have everything match the models exactly, and like, no, you wouldn't. No, you wouldn't. You don't even want that. You genuinely don't even want that. That's not a thing that you want in the first place, and you don't realize why, because you just haven't tried it. You just haven't tried it in practice. You don't have experience with this thing.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's so in general, I try to bury the hatchet with Matthew Matosis. I used to criticize his videos a lot,
Oh yeah.
and that brought a lot of negative attention to me. And so I've kind of just I hid all my articles criticizing him because like that was I was just getting the wrong sort of attention. I was
Yeah.
getting a lot of weirdos, and I'm like, I don't want that anymore. I want to do things for myself. I don't want to like be piggybacking on his popularity or whatever. And so I really don't want to like start beef with him.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
Totally.
the thing which I said in your Discord is largely that the video in general could have benefited from an understanding of the concept of affordances in design, because like the word the word he chose for it, the word he chose to title the video as aesthetic deception, I think is just like
It's
you're
too
just
judgmental.
talking about you're just talking about a hidden affordance or a false affordance.
Yeah.
You're not talking about aesthetic deception because it's such a pointed word.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't I in my studies or in my writing and stuff, I try not to reinvent the wheel where I can. I
Yeah.
try to bring a broader understanding of the world where I can, because like I am constantly studying all these different topics. Like as I mentioned, I take so much stuff from math. Math influences so much of what I do. Like graph theory is huge. Combinatorics are like a whole thing. There's just so much math in what I do. And obviously I don't use math in a very literal way, the way that a mathematician would, but I have a very strong mathy influence on my work from all this sort of stuff. And like I take from design. I love one of my favorite podcasts is the is 99% Invisible, which is just like the design of everyday things. All they do
Mm.
in that podcast is pick a random thing that is 99% invisible to you basically, and just describe the design of it, how it came to be the way that it is, and the sorts of choices and considerations that went into that. And if you learn design, if you learn all these different disciplines and kind of bring them all together, then you end up with a very holistic understanding of how these games get made and what sort of effects they have. And the example you have on screen right now with Jetta and Morrigan.
Yeah.
So what's the purpose of having that sprite, that fireball, be smaller than it is? The purpose of having that fireball be smaller than it is to make the object feel round,
Oh.
right?
How do you mean exactly?
So like if you have a circular object and you kind of undershoot the dimensions of the square hitbox. Mario 1 does this with their Goombas. The Goomba hitbox, whatever, is slightly smaller than the Goomba itself, and that gives the perception that like because like then if you touch like the sides of its head, you're not going to make contact with it, so it gives kind of this perception, oh hey, the Goomba is kind of rounded around the edges.
I see what you mean.
The other
Because
thing is
obviously,
like
it's something you just can't achieve because hitboxes are, squared off.
I mean, you can achieve it if you spent enough time, and that's the other aspect of this is that the the amount of detail that goes into hitboxes and hurtboxes, especially in fighting games, is a product of how much time do you have to allocate to this project. And I was actually
Mm.
speaking to Keats, the creator of Dive Kick, on Blue Sky recently. I just tweeted at him, "Hey, what do the hitboxes for Dive Kick look like?" And he said, "Oh, we did them as squares, but we did like a bajillion squares." Uh, yeah, so we did like a bajillion little squares for each of these hitboxes and hurtboxes because because we didn't have very many animation frames in Dive Kick, and therefore we
Mm.
had time to do it.
Mm.
And there you go.
See, another thing that was like pointed out to me by the homie Rex is that just a very simple gameplay consideration is that okay, the edge of the sprite is like about where proximity guard kicks in. So where if you were to hold back now
Yeah.
as Morgan, she would start guarding instead of walking. And that is like genuinely useful information that is like kind of
True.
cleanly conveyed
Oh yeah.
by having the
I mean,
difference
I've
between the
played
box and the
against
sprite.
Jetta a fair amount in that game, and like his ability to use those spinning wheels to keep someone in proximity block, to keep them from backing up, that's a big deal. That's
Mm.
it's a very scary tactic to be like, I want to get away, but you're like held in place, and you need to jump if you really want to get away. But then if
Mm.
you jump, you're vulnerable to other shit.
I see now that we've had this conversation, I do understand your initial point better that okay, by I guess what Matthew did here is he emphasized sort of the visual ridiculousness, but then he ignores the fact that it just feels a certain way in practice. And
I mean, I
that's
think
just
that
something
he's
you have to
being
kind of
very
gradually feel
literal.
out.
Based on the way he worded it in the video, I think he's being very literal.
Mm.
I think the whole framing of the video is just so weird in that like it chooses such a pointed word to describe this thing with, and it kind of talks shit about games, but not really.
Mm.
In that it feels like it wants to prescribe a certain value, but it never quite does. And it
Mm.
also doesn't treat this as a tool that can be used in a broader way. It's not like, okay, we can use
Yeah.
this for these purposes. And like that is what I teach when I teach about hitboxes is we can use this for these different purposes to accomplish these different goals. And by the way, I created the largest catalog of hitboxes that's ever been made on Flickr, like a giant Flickr album.
Ooh.
I'll link that in our chat and also in the Discord chat and
Nice.
also in your stream chat. So like I created the largest gallery of hitboxes and hurtboxes that's ever been assembled. So like I know hitboxes
Hell
of
yeah.
all things.
Hell
Uh,
yeah.
But like, I
um.
mean, the thing is, like, they build the hitboxes and hurtboxes in these games in all these specific ways because they want them to accomplish certain purposes. If you look at the Fireball hurtboxes in newer Street Fighter games, they are not as big as the balls themselves. What you'll see is it's actually just this tiny little thing at the front of the Fireball. It's not. It doesn't extend through the entire thing. It's not even as big as like the ball part of it. It's just this little sliver at the front of the ball. It's like
Ah, I see
Street
it.
Fighter 6 Fireball hitbox or something. Yeah, so like it's this tiny little sliver at the front of the ball. If you look at that, and what's the purpose of that? The purpose of that is such that you can easily do a neutral jump over the ball. They're trying to
Mm.
make it easier for you to do a neutral jump over the ball because it having the hitbox at the front of the ball accomplishes the purpose that you're looking for. It zones people the way that you want to zone people, but simultaneously you're letting people get that neutral jump over the ball more easily instead of making it such that like, oh, it extends back a bit, and now if you neutral jump even with very good timing you're going to get hit anyway. And then
Mm.
it's kind of like because you don't want fireballs in Street Fighter at least to force someone to jump forwards in particular
Yeah. Um.
because in the Street Fighter sort of design, like the only way in like the what would you call the platonic ideal of Street Fighter design, uh, you the only way to deal with fireballs, the only way to like nullify fireballs is by jumping over them. You don't have any other choice against fireballs except to jump over them. And when you're in the air, you cannot block. You're utterly helpless against anti-air moves.
Mm.
So that's kind of the platonic ideal of Street Fighter from which everything else springs. And Street Fighter games obviously have done a lot to kind of compromise that in different ways, like parrying, like focus attack, like drive parry in the new one, and stuff like that. So like they do stuff to make parries kind of sucky in all these different ways. I mean, to make fireballs kind of sucky in all these different ways in like the newer games. But kind of the core idea of Street Fighter is this fireball versus jumping dynamic that's going on.
Mm.
Yeah.
It is one of those things where, I mean, if we're using Matthew's terminology, the aesthetic honesty, it seems like a good idea on paper.
Yeah.
But then when you actually feel it, when you actually have to play the game, I think Bachar explained it really well. Where,
Yeah.
in the practical experience of playing these games, I think it's really easy to underestimate how
Yeah.
unintuitive.
You want to give a little bit of
Yeah,
forgiveness
yeah,
for a number of things,
yeah.
especially because like having that helps because like you kind of perceive it, you kind of build an internal model of how these things are, and when there's like just a little bit more forgiveness, you perceive the edges of your character as a little bit more what's the word, a little softer. Some, I also get a similar sense from like cancel windows and that sort of thing. When there's like no cancel window on a move, I perceive it as being very, very hard, very committal, very heavy. Versus like when there is a cancel move, and based on exactly how big that cancel window is, it gets softer and softer. So like even in Dark Souls, which is known as a very committal game, it's not as committal as like an older jankier title like I can't even cite them. I don't know. I think Kingdoms of Amalur maybe or something like that. Like there are these Western action games that just didn't have a cancel window at the end of attacks, and so they felt kind of shit. They felt really like clunky in a way that Dark Souls doesn't. And what did Dark Souls do in order to make itself feel less clunky, despite deliberately pursuing the design direction of commitment? They made it feel less clunky by giving you that small cancel window at the end of attacks so that you can get out of the follow through just a little bit earlier, which makes it feel softer at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Leo and Chat is saying that Matt's whole thing is meant as a spectrum. I feel like, I mean, I'm gonna upload my response in like a couple of days, but I just felt like he did not. He was a little too wishy-washy about it. It was for me. It was very hard to understand where exactly he was coming from.
I mean, it was very hard to understand where Matthew was coming from with any of that. It's just kind of an aimless video in many ways, and it's very much him reinventing the wheel because he doesn't seem to have a broader understanding of different topics that are very well known to designers.
Yeah. I mean, you were citing the affordance theory for games earlier. Like that's another thing I was familiar with because I cited in my thesis.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, it's one of those. Like that's what I just tell people. I think in my BA program, I took a lot of stuff for granted. I think I was also one of those guys who was like, yeah, I watched Matthew Matosis, I know game design, and all these books are so lame, blah, blah, blah. And it's really crazy how much you can still learn from, like, shit that was written, like, 20 years ago.
I learn things all the time. I'm learning constantly. That's just kind of how I am.
Yeah.
There's so much... There is a world of things that have not been said about Ocarina of Time.
Oh, yeah.
I was linked to some article from like a parody website called The Palette Swap. It was published in fucking like last year, I guess. Yep. And the title of the article is "Experts Believe They Found Something New to Say About Ocarina of Time." And I like read this and I'm like, there is a universe of things that haven't been said about Ocarina of Time. There is so little that has actually been said about Ocarina of Time, supposedly the most talked about game in the history of the medium, the greatest reviewed thing. In comparison, a lot of things have been said about Dark Souls.
Oh, yeah.
Of all games, for some reason, Dark Souls was the thing that kind of built this huge literacy of games for so many people. It's been kind of revolutionary in a lot of ways, I think, that Dark Souls helped spawn this literacy in much the same way that Magic the Gathering did, because it lays bare so much of its design. So please,
justified crash out.
Whereas, like, Ocarina of Time, it's kind of a shallow game in many ways if you really look at it. And I mean, Ocarina of Time really is kind of emblematic of the kind of lowest common denominator style of design that has become what AAA is.
Yeah.
People say that Ocarina of Time changed games forever, and a big part of that was kind of connecting this sort of lowest common denominator between like narrative storytelling, immersion, and gameplay. It's just kind of this lowest common denominator of all three things that kind of just, it is the slop.
When I
defined what the slop would be.
When I recently revisited it, I did A Link to the Past and Ocarina back to back, and I was shocked in just the step back in density. It is such an empty, shallow game. And I mean, one thing that really scared me is when you said that Majora's Mask was the same. I used to love that game, and now I'm very scared to go back.
Yeah. I mean, Majora's Mask did a couple small things. Like, a big one that I'll give credit to Majora's Mask for is that when you like roll or go off of when you do the auto ledge jump thing with speed, you inherit the speed that you took from the
Yes.
previous thing. It's adding an additional input to that mechanic that creates a wider range of outputs. So like there's a little bit of that all over the place in Majora's Mask where you have this broadening of the set of inputs taken into mechanics for a broadening of the outputs, but it's not very much, and it's very much a puzzle game.
Yeah. God,
Uh,
maybe we have to collab on an Ocarina of Time thing because like it's very fresh in my mind still. So I'd be down for that.
Ocarina of Time is kind of my white whale, but
Hell yeah.
also I just have much higher priority things to go after in the short term.
I want to say real quick. I got a raid earlier from the homie Bjorn. Thank you for the raid. Thank you to everybody who just joined. I hope this is Celia for clarity. The raid is from a fellow German streamer.
Cool.
So I hope they're not all like insanely confused about everything we're saying.
Oh, sure.
But yeah.
Yeah, we're talking game design, kind of like how underdeveloped the state of game design understanding really is
Yes.
in comparison to where I think it could be if like because like I think that all the lessons are out there. They're all out there in the form of the games that people have made. Like if you just study these games closely enough, if you just look at them and make observations about them and then try to generalize those observations into overall conclusions, you're going to learn a lot. But the thing is, people don't have the ability to even see what's in front of them in the first place.
Yeah.
I like to compare this to music theory or color theory. If you're not educated in music theory and you just listen to a song, you're probably not going to pick up on like what chords are being played or the concept of an arpeggio or things like that. There's all these different things that you just aren't aware of, and so you're not really processing what's coming at you. And if you just look at the thing and like just really like take your time to observe it, you can learn so much from that. But the problem is that we've been conditioned by the culture of games to kind of have this sort of we've kind of pulled the wool over our own eyes. We haven't cataloged all the lessons that we learned along the way, and the lessons have become forgotten. Compared to, say, the Magic the Gathering design literacy. Magic the Gathering design literacy is just so high in comparison to practically any video game. Like, Magic the Gathering players and designers just are on another fucking level. And obviously there's a lot of criticisms to be made about the state of Magic the Gathering overall, but, like, the design literacy is insane because they've been learning their lessons for 20, 30 years. They've just been like lesson, and they just keep compiling this into a much more rich understanding of all of these concepts. And that's why, I mean, they held like the great designer search in the community where they basically quizzed people about, hey, how would you do this based on these different things? What would this be? Which keywords would a thing of this, that, in this colors have? Yada, yada, yada. And we just don't have that for games. We don't have that for video games in nearly the same way. It's very strong in the tabletop space. It's much weaker in the video game space. In part because like video games are this hybrid art form in a way that not even tabletop games are. We have this fantasy element to them.
Oh yeah.
Where this fantasy narrative type element. I'm sure you're familiar with the old GNS theory, which personally I subscribe to GNS theory. Gamist, narrativist, simulationist. Todd and Kelly would add to that behaviorist for like the ugly like the ugly shit that like the companies are doing to exploit people. Which really started with like mobile games in particular, where it's like, okay, the loot boxes, the like dailies, all this different stuff to kind of absorb that. Oh boy, games formalism.
See,
yeah, I do. Yeah.
Yeah, that's I immediately had to think in that kind of direction because that's what I've been researching a little lately because well, you just spoke to that video games have this this experiential fantasy element, right? That like I feel like a
Yeah.
lot of the game's writing is centered around um God, basically not a formalist perspective, right? Basically a perspective of okay, um, what is this thing as an overall narrative experience that I'm going through, as like a sum of its parts, kind of,
Yeah.
versus
This
versus
Yeah, there's a
the
holistic view versus a more narrow view of the work.
yeah
And when I say so, I think that there's kind of you could say there's like 5 camps per se, but like GNS theory points out 3 camps within like a classical understanding of games and what people value in games. There's kind of 3 camps. There's people who value the gameplay, there's people who value the story, there's people who value the simulation of it, the immersion of it. And
mm.
I very heavily connect simulationism to immersion. And you probably read my big takedown of immersion not that long ago.
Oh
I
yeah,
actually updated it recently to include more citations from this book, The Privilege of Play, which talks about early simulationist style war games uh, and kind of the culture that those had. Uh, so formalism, I do consider myself to be a games formalist.
same.
I was involved in those discussions 10 years ago. You'll find me in the comments section if you go searching for games formalism.
Fire.
So there you go. But I do consider myself a games formalist, and like you can look at different types of formalism, because there's a formalist tradition for practically any art medium that you
Yeah,
can think of. Like I mean, the big elephant in the room there is of course formalist film criticism,
yeah.
and you can see this in Tony Zhao's series, Every Frame of Painting,
Mm.
on YouTube, and that is a very formalist, like not critique, but like a very formalist kind of education in film theory. And within films, we have like shots, we have cuts, we have angles, we have all these different attributes to just what the thing is. And I really love Tony Zhao's explanation of the Michael Bay, the Bayhem thing, because he describes how like Michael Bay is in many ways a formalist in the way that he shoots movies. He
Mm.
cares very, very strongly about shots and cuts. And like there's a story of him like putting on a movie for his friends in like his personal like home movie theater or whatever, and he apologized because the movie was boring and he put on a different one instead. And kind of everything that Michael Bay does in his films is try to combine interesting shots and cuts, and that's kind of all that he does. Or like you have the classic Michael Bay shot where like you rise up, you like circle around someone, and the camera like rises up to see the sky in the process of circling around that person, and then you have something moving through the background above them to kind of sell this grandeur of the scene, like jet planes going overhead, that kind of stuff.
Mm.
What is Bayhem? Bayhem is shots, cuts, and movement, and that's a very, very formalist way to build a movie, which are obviously like there's things to criticize about Michael Bay's filmography in other aspects, but just from like a very formalist perspective, it's doing a lot of interesting things that other films aren't necessarily doing. And obviously, it's not doing everything you could be doing with a film or with filmography.
Mm.
And Tony Zhao criticizes Bay near the ending for his inability to make simpler scenes, his inability to be minimalist.
Mm.
The circular camera move, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm obviously lagging a little because I'm watching your
Oh yeah,
stream
no,
play
you're
back
good.
to me. But yeah, so like he's a slave to his eye, and he can't
Yeah.
tone it down even when the scene really demands it. He needs to be he needs to be cutting. He needs to have these things going on in all these different ways, and this is certainly a way of viewing film. It's obviously not the only way of viewing film, but it is a way. It is a lens that we have for viewing film that isn't nearly as developed over in video games. Over in video
Yeah.
games, we don't nearly have this same type of development for viewing games in a formalist way. I knew someone once who called gameplay the invisible art form because it's
Mm,
this thing that's there and we all interact with it and we all get this sensation of fun from it, but we can't describe it. We don't have the
mm.
words to describe it. And that's true both on the ground level of players, but also in these game studios themselves. They have so much trouble describing these things.
There's something that you touched on that also is a subject in this article where I think formalists, they can be blind to like the humanity of art sometimes. One example here, I don't know if y'all remember, but there's this game called Hatred, where
Oh, I know about hatred.
you play as this like this mass shooter, right? And
So I'm gonna interrupt a little.
yeah.
I actually ended up writing an article on games formalism like while I was in LA.
Mhm.
And I touch very directly on the whole like not seeing the humanity of things
Yeah.
because like I get it. I've been there and we have so much going on. And
Yeah.
it's formalism has kind of is kind of a complicated history in that the movement was really pushing forward at the same time that Gamergate was going on,
Yeah.
and like really tricky to it's really tricky to grapple with the things that went on during that time period versus an academic call for what do you say, for taking a step back from viewing games as represent from viewing games through the lens of representation.
Yeah.
Because like representation is viewing games as these little fictional worlds. You very much focus on the meaning of the game, the whatever of the game. And there was
Yes.
also like the whole big like fight between the art games movement versus the weirdo hardcore gamers who were very upset by the art games movement. Which, hey, I was one of those weirdos at the time, and I learned to fucking cool it.
Yeah.
Because kind of the realization I had in 2016 was, wait a fucking second, no, good games are still coming out all the time. People are still making good games all the time. Just like it's going to be different than how it was. Like
Yeah.
the corporate AAA is going to be different from how it was. A lot of the resentment that was poured into Gamergate came from a resentment towards the rise of AAA and the
Yeah.
way that games outlets were complicit in as essentially PR for the rise of AAA, and essentially these idiots kind of conflated that with social justice progressivism, which I mean that was really just like rainbow capitalism at work. You had the games
Mm.
outlets doing rainbow capitalism, or like the feminism social justice equivalent of rainbow capitalism, in order to appease to the base of people that were reading the articles. And so you have these sort of nominally tokenly progressive stances alongside essentially PR for these AAA corporations that are presenting games in a much more like kind of profit driven way than it ever was before. You have the consolidation of industry, you have all these negative capitalist trends going on at the same time that there's rainbow capitalism going on. So rainbow capitalism becomes the scapegoat for all the
Mm.
other shit.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
Um,
that's fascist politics in a nutshell.
yeah. It's like on the one hand, I understand that like you don't want to be the guy who's like, what about the gameplay of Hatred though? It's pretty good, right? Um,
It
li-
wasn't. I mean, I heard from people who didn't have a horse in that fucking fight, and everyone was like, "Yeah, nah, this game is kind of shit."
yeah, it's this is just for the sake of argument, right?
Sure.
Um, uh, like that may be true. On the other hand, it's like I do think again like some of the links here are a little dead, but there I think to this day this like dismissal of like a formalist perspective has just persisted. Where okay, a
I don't
very
think that's true. I think all this old shit, I think the hatchet got buried, and everyone who was talking about it 10 years ago isn't in the fight anymore.
Okay.
I
Hmm.
think that the whole thing just moved the fuck along, and the whole topic is just dead.
Okay.
Has formless game analysis come any further in 10 years? No, not really. And that's probably, I mean, I see that more as my fault than anyone else's.
Okay.
It's
Hmm.
it's my fault for not basically doing a better job to proselytize, I guess, for not building a YouTube presence, for not. I have integrated myself more closely into. I have integrated myself more closely into the games industry in various ways by doing the work that I do.
Yep.
So I'm trying to like kind of raise up the next generation of games formalists in some ways.
Hmm.
But I mean that also has a limited impact. And I mean, hey, it's gonna take me another 10 years to get to where I really want to be, assuming I can get there in 10 years.
Hmm. Maybe to circle back to the topic of academia in general, I can just say that in my experience, sort of pitching games, doing presentations, that sort of shit, there's always been this like undercurrent of like, okay, if you make these super gamey ass games that you think are interesting, you have all these reasons for why you think they're interesting. Um, it can be kind of hard to convince people that they're interesting. You know, I think even in an academic setting, there's often this like response of like, oh, this seems kind of quaint. Um, why shouldn't we instead push this game? That's like an allegory for depression or something. I don't know. Do you kind of get where I'm coming from?
Sorry, repeat that one. Games as a allegory for like depression and stuff.
Yeah, like where I think even in an academic setting, there is a tendency to gravitate toward much more obviously
Yeah.
representational, like artsy kind of games. Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, like, I think that people are reaching for the things they are familiar with.
Yeah.
And, I mean, there was, even before the whole games formalist movement, there was the ludology versus narratology
Oh yeah.
wars,
Oh yeah.
which were, like, way further back. And that's what resulted in the genesis of the, what is it? That's what resulted in the genesis of the game studies field in the first place.
Mm,
And I mean, I think game studies largely looks at games kind of as this new media art form, rather than necessarily in the same formalistic way that I view it. I
mm,
view myself less as contributing to that sort of academia, and more as contributing towards the academia that is done by people like Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnston. Like basically
mm,
the artists out there who come up with theories for how to make interesting art. So like was it like you're not going to learn color theory in an art history course. Like if you get a
mm,
degree in art history, you probably won't learn color theory. You're going to learn that if you go to art college, if you go to illustration.
mm,
And color theory is a very useful tool for painting, but you like the actual like practices of how you do these things is not is not something that typically exists in academia the same way that it does in else stuff. Because like film studies is aware of a lot of these different techniques, but there's a difference between getting a film studies degree and going to film school.
mm. Gotcha.
There's this separation between the academic side versus the artist side in most of these fields, and it's really difficult to talk about a lot of this because like obviously game studies does talk about more the ludological end of it in many cases, but I think that people kind of lean on the things that they are familiar with in lieu of the things they're unfamiliar with because they can't even see that it's there,
Mm,
or they process it as something so banal that they don't even like look that closely at it. And
mm,
obviously, like a lot of these game studies kind of people are aware of the concept of systems, like of systems thinking, and certainly there are very good criticisms within all different academic things of different types of systems. Like people talk about how these systems incentivize certain behaviors to lead towards certain outcomes in the real world. And we see this in the design of many games. And game studies people are fairly good at analyzing that when it comes to like a game like Papers, Please,
oh
but
yeah.
they're kind of shit at it when it comes to a game like Go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I totally agree with that. Hmm. Okay. See, like, do you have anything else that's sort of on your mind that you want to get off your chest, maybe?
I mean, I can keep talking forever. I imagine you're trying to wrap this up, though.
Um, See, I guess yeah, it's like it's almost midnight. I've built this
Fair,
new
fair,
habit of like going out for like a bike ride in the morning while I'm unemployed, you know.
fair.
Mm,
There you go.
yeah, I don't want to like shoo you off or anything.
All good, all good. Uh, what can I say? Uh, I mean, I'm trying to develop this space. I think that I have a long way to go on my own. I need to put a lot of effort into this that I simply haven't yet.
mm,
I'm fairly scatterbrained. I'm very ADHD about stuff. So I still have a lot of unpublished articles I need to get out there, like this game's formalism thing that I wrote, kind of my stance at explaining what formalism even is and why
yeah,
I, in particular, am a games formalist, and kind of how that interacts with my very progressive politics these days.
yeah.
Uh, I mean, I've also have articles on like what is a game, like literally what even is a game in the first place, and this other concept that I've been developing with Dan Felder called play pattern alignment. He just
Okay.
calls it alignment. Another term for it might be incentive alignment. Play pattern alignment is the thing that I think is the most non-specific but also clear at the same time, because incentive alignment is a little too specific for what I'm going for, even if it's very close to the concept. But the idea with alignment is basically the idea of like incentivizing the player to play the game in the way that's the most fun.
Mm, okay.
Yeah.
See,
Yeah.
that sort of stuff. I don't want to draw this out too long, but
Oh yeah.
that sort of like psychological element and
Yeah.
the idea of incentivization and motivation is something I'm always really cautious about. It's I don't have any kind of psychological background.
Hey, fair.
Yeah, so like really, but I'm sorry that I have this person here on screen. Oh my god. This is a little crazy.
I mean,
Um,
you can scroll down.
yeah,
You can
yeah, yeah.
click to
Oh my
another
god.
tab.
Yeah. Let's go to another tab. What's a nice tab? Let's go back to Makabe. Um, it's just it's something I was very intentional about with my thesis as well, right? Where
Oh yeah.
um I don't want to enter this like very nebulous, very hard to kind of grasp realm of psychology, and especially I think it's something I've gotten a little cynical toward in general, right? I obviously games are made for human beings to experience and to play.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh yeah.
but then the
Share
idea
pleasure.
of like, okay, I'm making the game to psychologically like maneuver the player into specific behaviors or emotions, right? That's something
Well, I
that
mean, it's
gives me a
more.
lot of
I
that
get
vexes
you.
me a little bit, and especially as a game designer, I've sort of adopted this like strategy of okay, I want to make something that I think is interesting, and
Yeah.
then as long as you find it interesting, I'm happy. You know, I wonder how
Sure.
you feel about that.
So really the topic of alignment is more based around preventing that interesting thing from breaking down.
Gotcha.
So like really alignment or incentive alignment or play pattern alignment or whatever is about a prevention of a breakdown in the core tension of the game. You have this core tension, and if people can find a way to undermine that core tension in order to win, people are going to do it. There's that saying like, if given the opportunity, players will optimize the fun out of a game.
Yeah.
And and alignment is really about avoiding that at all costs by really considering the different systemic incentives and the different ways that these mechanics kind of play off each other to prevent that kind of breakdown. One thing I would like to shout out at the end here is that
Yeah.
I didn't end up with the whole idea of depth like kind of fully formed. I certainly was influenced by the different places that I was in at the time, like when I was like learning about these different things. I kind of had like an early definition of depth kind of handed to me. One person said, "Oh, I think that you're looking for like all the non-redundant states in a game." And
Mm,
I was like, "Yes, actually that's exactly it." And I'm like, "That's it." And I eventually I kind of co-developed this idea with an old friend of mine, and we kind of separated it from non-redundant into differentiated depth versus relevant depth. And obviously I've renamed some of these over time. Differentiated used to be titled absolute depth, and now it's differentiated instead. Relevant depth, it's always been titled relevant depth. So like his conception of it was that like depth is about like the space of possibilities that players engage with, and the non-redundant part is the things which aren't irrelevant to a player. And in my conception, non-redundant was all the states that don't like overlap one another, overshadow one another, all the states that aren't symmetrical with one another. And really the key thing with symmetry there is it's a symmetry of experience. It's an experiential symmetry, a symmetry across like rotation, a symmetry across distance, a symmetry across growth. All these different things can be symmetrical in all these different sorts of ways, and we want to kind of break those things by adding wrinkles into the game, things which don't match up, which don't follow a clear pattern, things which kind of ultimately create these dynamics and have us engage with them in unique different ways. And so I didn't arrive at this fully formed. It's something which I very much had to develop over time, and I had to kind of come at it from different perspectives. I've had to revise it a number of times. And obviously I don't say non-redundant anymore because that doesn't communicate the same thing as meaningfully different.
Yeah.
That's really what I'm going more for, or like the asymmetry thing. So like there's like a lot of little subtle tweaks in the language that I use around all these different topics because I'm always trying to revise this and make it more clear to people. Because I mean, ultimately, what I do is I'm trying to give people the same understanding, the same viewpoint that I have, and they're not going to get that if they can't understand what I'm saying in the first place. And to come back to like the lessons are all out there. There's a billion arcade games. There's a billion of these other games. There's a billion fighting games. There's a billion hardcore competitive games. And I think that like getting a grounding in a hardcore competitive game, in a game that's had a competitive community for over 10 years and has been the same that whole time, if you like stick with like a still water game like that, so to speak, like still water, like water that's gone rotten from like there's no new people flowing in or out, you just kind of the same audience that was there 10 years ago. If you get really good at one of these still water games, then you're going to learn things about the game, because people in the process of trying to get good at these games, people develop an understanding of these games, and they're able to explain the systems of these games, and so you kind of naturally get a design education from simply learning about the systems of these games. One of the people we have working on the course is a League of Legends system designer, and we do mock interviews at the end of the course, and this is always kind of a little painful for me because like I'm asking people, hey, look, take all the lessons we give you, really look at these things, really like tell us about these things, really look at these things in detail. And frequently a lot of people just can't do it. They're not looking the right way. They're still kind of they're just defaulting on all these different things. They're not looking at the exact things that are going on. And some people asked in one of these courses, like, hey, it seems like your expectations of us are kind of unrealistic. You're asking us like all these details about games that we've never thought about before. And is that normal for a design interview? And the League of Legends guy was like, yeah, absolutely. Like, I run an interview, and some guy will come in, and I'll be like, hey, can you break down the high level metagame of Pokemon? And that person has like a whole thesis ready, and they can explain the entire competitive high level metagame of Pokemon and all these different ways they would adjust it and all these different things. And that does demonstrate that shows a real understanding of system design that makes them good designers for League, though. This guy is also very bitterly disillusioned about League of Legends. I'm going to mention that part. But yeah.
That is so interesting because like I can say from experience, a lot of the people that come into our program, it definitely feels like they like one game and they want to make sort of like something similar, and that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A frequent piece of feedback we give people in these mock interviews is play more games. You don't play enough games to get this job. Yeah. And like a big part of it is, are you even serious about this? Because this is not it's a creative field. Like, I was not serious about getting an animation job, and that's why I didn't. If I was serious about getting an animation job, I would have 5 films under my belt. I would have this insane demo reel of all these different things under my belt to show, hey, I can do the job. I can do the job better than anyone else who is interviewing for this job. And are you serious about analyzing these games? And frequently people just aren't. And a big part of it, I feel, is that they don't have the words for it, so so it's kind of invisible to them because they can't even vocalize the thing they don't know. It's an unknown unknown. I wrote another article, why don't we know how to design games? What is it? Why don't we know how to design games? I'm gonna link that to you directly. And there's like these four things. There's the known knowns, known unknowns, unknown knowns, and unknown unknowns. And a lot of game design theory is sitting squarely in that unknown unknown category. People don't know that there's stuff out there they don't even know about. People don't even know that they're ignorant about it. And so how are you supposed to analyze games when you don't know what you aren't seeing in front of your face? When you don't know how big these timing windows are, when you don't know how the physics are programmed. And that's part of why I'm making that video on jumping physics, is because, like, how does the jump in Mario work? And I ask people this all the time. Hey, you're interviewing for a technical designer position. How would you code a variable height jump?
It is a cursed mechanic. I think in Mario it is...
It's great. It's easy.
Well, it is great when it works. I wasn't it in Mario the fact that, okay, they when you hold the button, it runs a timer.
Nope.
Okay, that's not it.
No.
Okay.
Mario one's kind of a difficult example. It's a trickier one than the others.
Yeah. God, I think I used to know this. I would love for you to explain it right now.
Sure. Okay. So basically, let's start with the Castlevania jump. So the Castlevania jump is basic physics. It's stuff you learned in high school physics if you had high school physics. You have an initial jump force. So that's like your X velocity and your Y velocity. So you have a certain X velocity, which is your movement across the screen from left to right, right to left, whatever. And then you have the initial jump force. The initial jump force is just how fast are you moving upwards when you press that jump button. So you might know that the Castlevania jump is completely locked the whole time. It is not a variable height jump. So you have the initial jump force, you have the movement from left to right or whatever, and you have gravity pulling on you. So each frame, gravity decrements your Y velocity by by a certain amount, until eventually at the height of your jump, it flips, and now you're like moving downwards instead of upwards. So like your initial jump force might be like 20, gravity might be like 4. So like second frame, you're moving up 16 pixels. Third frame, you're moving up 12 pixels. Fourth frame, you're moving up 8 pixels. Then you're moving up 4. Then you're moving up 0. That's the top of your jump arc. Then you're moving downwards in the opposite direction. And you just mirror people call it gravity's rainbow. So that's that. So now how do you make it so that when you hold the button longer, you go higher? And the naive answer is, oh, there's a timer, and as long as the timer hasn't elapsed, you're moving upwards. And I consider that answer to be a fail. That's what Commander Keen 4 through 6 did, and I do have a little infographic for that one. So I programmed that when I was in high school. That's not an acceptable answer. That you can do better than that. So the Mario and Sonic answer is probably the easiest one. If you have positive Y velocity and you release the button, it instantly sets your Y velocity to a lower value. So in Mega Man, that value is 0. In Sonic, that value is 4. Yeah?
I remember.
Yeah. So it instantly sets your Y velocity to a much lower value. It breaks you in midair. The Mario solution to this is when you release the button, gravity gets 3 times as strong.
Okay.
Yep.
Huh.
And in Super Mario World, you can actually press the button again after you've released it, and gravity will get lower again.
Huh. Okay. I remember, I was really struggling with this in the demo I was working on, on the best simulation, because, God, I can't remember the exact issue anymore, but, there was ways to leave the ground other than jumping, And then
Yeah.
if you did like weird things, like if you hold the button again in midair, it would like cause weird interactions. And I could never
Yeah.
really settle on, okay, what would be the best way to do this?
And the answer is you track like what the current you just tie it to releasing the button. So the
Yeah.
key isn't holding the button longer, the key is actually releasing the button.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I did do that, but then that had other issues or something. I need to. Yeah, maybe I'll consult you on that. Actually, maybe when I find the time to like
I mean,
dig
I
back
have
into it.
little infographics of all
Yeah.
of these because it's been a project for a while. And like
Yeah.
I said, I'm gonna make a video on this, and I even have like pseudocode prepared to explain all of these things.
Nice.
But yeah, so it's a very simple problem, but like I talk to university graduates and they can't answer it.
Well, you just did as well, so.
Well, I mean, you're not a programmer, and these people are applying to be technical designers, which
True.
is essentially
True.
kind of like the in between programmers and designers. But also, like, this is a design question. This isn't just a programming question.
I agree.
Why did these different games choose these different solutions for how the jump code works? That's a design problem.
Yeah.
And that's why I go into Hollow Knight Silksong and I'm like, yep, they did the same thing that Symphony of the Night did, and also Mega Man. Mega Man is obviously tuned to have a much higher gravity value and a much higher initial jump force, so
Yeah.
that like it'll get like that kind of really heavy sort of jump to it. But a lot of people incorrectly assume that when you release the button in Mega Man that you instantly like fall like a rock, which isn't true. It kind of just, you will have the same arc as if you were coming down from the top of your jump. You do accelerate downwards. And people, I mean, if you don't have it, it's all out there. This information is all out there. I got this from I got the Sonic one in particular from some wikis that document how the Sonic physics system works entirely. There's like a whole like Sonic retro wiki that documents the entirety of the Sonic physics engine, and that's how Sonic Mania recreated the original classic Sonic physics when Sega lost the source code. You just pay close attention to these things, and then you're capable of doing all sorts of stuff with it. And if you're not looking in that way, then you're not going to figure it out.
What you're seeing on screen here right now is in fact my jump code. So I did in fact know that this was a way to do it at some point. That okay, you see, I cut the velocity like basically to, well, I multiplied it. Oh my god, I cut it to 5% of what it was. Yeah, but for various reasons, it still didn't quite solve my problem. I think I need to dig back in. Okay. Celia, is there anything you would like to plug still?
So obviously there is my blog at cryptpoints.net.
Yes.
There is what else? So there's my blog at cryptpoints.net. I have a Discord. I have a Blue Sky. Those are both linked on there. I do have a Patreon. Not that I do a lot with it, to be honest. What else? GameDesignSkills.com is where I teach, and we've been developing we're constantly working on our courses. We roll out. We run courses just about every like semester, basically. We have like a rolling different group of courses that are being like picked up at different times. We do level design. We recently started a system design course, which I'm sitting in on because Dan Felder's incredible. Like that guy commands respect from everyone he runs into, including me. So we're doing a lot of stuff there, and check it out.
Hell
So
yeah.
cryptpoints.net, GameDesignSkills.com, and of course all the shit plugged in the sidebar of my blog is a big one.
Yes. And you're also on the Zebra Discord.
I am in your Discord.
Yes. So, for those in chat who like, if you're interested in talking to Celia there, that's also an avenue, of course.
Or of course there is my Discord, which is
yeah.
linked on my blog.
Which is way cooler than my Discord, so you should join that.
Allegedly.
Okay, Celia, thank you so much for coming on.
It's been fun. Thanks for having me on.
yeah, I think the chat also really enjoyed it. So
Awesome.
yeah, cool.
And of
Okay.
course, I love answering questions of all kinds.
Yeah.
My blog was built on the back of Ask.fm and later Curious Cat, where I would just answer questions and essentially have this kind of Socratic dialogue with the readers of the blog, where always be asking me about different stuff, and so I'd be forced to kind of elaborate and work out what I even thought about all this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm looking forward to your YouTube debut as well. I think that'll be
Thank
big.
you. I mean, I've already had a YouTube debut, but like I need to like actually get on my shit.
Yeah.
So I published some story analysis of Metal Gear Rising like 10 years ago.
Damn.
Yeah, I published a story analysis which honestly kind of a veiled hey, gameplay is important kind of message more than anything else. But yeah, there you go.
Fire. Okay.
I'll do what I can.
Okay, I'll sign off. I'll hit the end call button and I'll say goodbye to the chat. Talk to you soon.
Catch you, dude.
Okay, y'all. Thanks again to CELIA for coming on. And thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for asking good questions. I'm sorry if we didn't get to absolutely everything. Hell yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna post some of CELIA's links again here. I think we got most people here on Twitch, so. Critpoints.net. And game design skills.com. Okie dokie. Oh, okay. It's pretty late for me. Was a good stream. I'll be back on Monday as always. It'll be Potential Man Monday, as you know. Our favorite segment. I don't know what we're playing yet. Hopefully the weather will be bearable. We'll see. Yeah. You're not a big fan of everything you discussed. Okay. I'm glad you still enjoyed it. I'm glad you still got some value out of it. What else? Consider supporting me over here, either by becoming a Twitch sub, YouTube member, or a Ko-fi member. Let me see. We got 21 Twitch subs. We got... I think we should still be at 7 Ko-fi members. So that's 28. And we got 5 YouTube members. That's, oh my god, dude. We're bleeding shareholders by the day. I think we're at 33 shareholders. Okay, I'm lowering the count. So guys, if you want to get the number in the bottom right up again, please consider supporting me. Oh my god. I'm still, as of right now, I am very much not in stable employment, so yeah. Hell yeah. I love that. I still think, CELIA, I still think Ocarina of Time collab. I think that's a banger idea. I think that's a capital idea. I'd also love to know like what just games you're working on potentially. I think you've kind of hinted at that being a thing. But yeah. We can figure out another date for sure. Okay. Y'all, I'll sign off. I'll go to bed. I'll stay healthy. I'll go for my bike ride tomorrow and I'll make videos. I got a couple videos to upload, so yeah. I gotcha. Yeah, that's totally understandable. We'll figure something out. Okay. Bye bye y'all. I'm signing off. I'm fucking